Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
I'm a fan of classic movies.
Hello and welcome to Ticket Stubs. We talk movies in all their forms, double features, audio commentaries, and everything in between. We take movies seriously, even if we don't take ourselves too seriously. We're your co-hosts, Kyle and Levi Huffman. I'm Kyle.
I'm Levi.
And here we are, Levi, back with another episode. It's been a little while. It's been a while, as we like to say. Last you heard from us was right after the Academy Awards this past year. Feel like we've already blinked and it's May. And we've already, our Blue Plate Special, we're going to be talking about a whole host of recent releases. Kind of jump through them fairly quickly. But the movies today, as you can already tell by the title of our double feature, are Saving Private Ryan. You've probably heard of it, from 1998. And The Thin Red Line, also from, you guessed it, 1998.
I've heard of that. I've heard that before because of how much that one guy in The Life and Death of Colonel Blimp talks about the thin red line.
The Thin Red Line.
With the, pineapple. And
Yeah.
he's like, it was here and it was here. And then at the end, he's like, somebody's like, actually, that was all nonsense. And he's like,
Yeah. So how's life been, Levi?
It's been all right. It was just getting towards the end of the year here, of the school year. So I finished reading Infinite Jest.
Congratulations.
It was good.
It was good.
I don't have any more to say on it.
We talked
because I
about
could
it
talk for an hour or so.
a while back, I remember.
Right. I was going to write about it, and then I was just like, no. So,
I had said this before, and I've told you this. It's like, on an intellectual level, when you get done with that book, you know that, now I know what it all is. I want to start back over, but on a practical level, you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. But that's great. Yeah, I'm glad. That's a rite of passage, a coming of age of many ways of any young literary man out there on the town. I've had a pretty great little school year. I'm happy to see the summer come up, but I've really enjoyed my kids this year. I'd say is one of my favorite years I've had overall. So
mine's been really good. It kind of took until the end. I think this kind of happens, but it kind of takes till at least over halfway through the year for you to kind of have a real opinion about it.
Sure.
And I've just kind of got to where I'm already starting to miss the kids, and they haven't, left yet. But overall, it was a good year. So.
I feel like our two double features today, our double feature of these two movies today, they're movies that are always kind of glancingly talked about. Oh, those two movies came out around the same time, but there's never really, I don't think, frankly, been a serious discussion of how they work in concert together.
We regularly kind of have that conversation.
Maybe not generally, those movies are kind of siloed off in different kind of conversations, even though. But I think what we're going to try to get to the bottom of today is how they both function as these different things, but also how they undeniably act as, and we've talked about the late 90s phenomenon in general of a lot of closing the chapter of a lot of different things. I mean, Infinite Jest in its own way is a literary version of that, I know.
Yeah.
And these are two movies that are, I think, pretty beloved by most people. Obviously, I think Saving Private Ryan is naturally more remembered and more influential in a lot of ways, while also Thin Red Line is still held in very high regard for those who are familiar with it.
Yeah.
Undeniably, Saving Private Ryan is something that's just put a larger imprint and influence on the culture.
Yeah.
for better, and not necessarily for worse, but more so just when I say worse, I don't even mean in terms of like morally or ethically what it's saying, more so just in terms of the roteness of war cinema in the last 30 years, basically. It's like a lot of it can go back to that.
Whereas very few movies have. A lot of movies have been influenced by the Thin Red Line. Obviously, I think
more so Terrence Malick in general is more of an influence, maybe.
Yeah,
you know.
well, but just I think what I guess I should say is I think that those movies have been an influence on anti-war films, obviously, but it's kind of been harder. That's kind of a hard movie to replicate or to, to serve as an influence for a project because it's idiosyncratically itself. It's like, you're just basically going to be doing it again if, that kind of rhythm only he can really
it's very idiosyncratic.
And he can't accomplish it all the time either.
Yeah.
So,
versus like, and I say this as someone who thinks
he does in this film, to be clear. I mean, like, in his career, sometimes he's got movies that are like, okay, all right, I get it, but like,
Versus, and I say this with all the love in the world to Steven Spielberg because I think he quite literally very well may be the greatest filmmaker of all time. He's just naturally a much more accessible filmmaker in terms of the way he makes the movies that he does and how that naturally is a style that has been very successful at the box office, at Academy Awards, amongst film fans, and even just casual movie goers alike. It's just they're very different movies, and I'm glad that they, as we'll talk about, they exist in the same time frame because they they're scratching similar itches in some ways, but then also have fundamentally, I won't say even opposed, but just different visions of what that war in particular was and what war in general is also. Yeah. So we're going to be getting into those very soon, but it's been a while since we dug into it, so put that handkerchief around your neck. It's time for the Blue Plate Special.
Hi, Audrey.
Mama, have a cup of coffee, please.
Sure. I'll have what she's having.
Hey, who wants the large pepperoni? Coming up!
Your all-you-can-eat Elroy family picnic is right here. By the way, that might be one more where you need to put the hanky around your nose rather than around your neck. But.
Well, you said Elroy. And it makes me think of Elroy writing something about some profane
hanky
or like hanky or like something about, I don't know, just like some.
Cornflakes
and
toaster.
I about said something he says in another video that I'm not going to say. Right. Speaking of books, I recently, I don't know.
Just to be clear, I was more referencing like the if your family's the Manson family, but just went ahead because he used to say that about stuff all the time, and instead just made it Elroy. So
finished.
His mother notably was murdered. So
yes, The Cold 6000, which was a book that I actually really liked, almost liked as much as American Tabloid. I might even actually like it as much. So. Elroy, I'm still out there. I'm still hitting the blocks reading him. So I've actually Bloods Are Over is supposed to be arriving today at my home. So
one of the worst titles for anything I've ever heard.
I don't know what that's about. The Colt 6000 is actually like a great. I think it's kind of like you hear the title and you're like, okay, I don't know what that means, but then like that actually has a function in the book, and it's like actually poetic. Use of that in relation to that book, but anyway,
he has either a really great name for a book or a really terrible one. Because also, like All My Dark Places is another book.
I kind of like that, even though it is.
Bloods Are Over is like another level of bad, but like, he's a fascinating dude. I know we've talked a lot about him on here, but he's somebody that I wish his books were a little better, or. Not that they'd be better, that I would like them a little better, maybe.
I feel like I had a minor revelation about him after finishing this one where I realized, and I feel like this is said about certain artists, writers, filmmakers in general, but I feel like this applies to him maybe more so than other people that this is said about. It's all one book. It's all, and I say that as a compliment, it's like he's basically... what he does is a singular genre, and in many ways, it's actually a singular story because like there's all these recurring characters, and there's like one or two from the last one that loosely connect, so it just all connects, and it's basically he's his own like. It's all one story, basically, as far as his fiction's concerned. Right. And I say that as someone, I like that about it. And that kind of, I don't feel like I've read the one, like, what I would say is a 5-star book from him. But there's several strong 4 to 4.5s that I really like. So, yeah, I'll say that for him. Speaking of a strong 4-star, for me, anyways, The Bride! ! Now, I know we made very brief mention of this on our Best of 2025 episode because we had just recently seen it, I remember. Don't think it's going to get any Oscar nominations this coming year. I remember a few years ago when it was announced Maggie Gyllenhaal is directing a remake of The Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, to go suck a F herself.
And then, I know. I recently watched Donnie Darko.
I'll talk about that in just a minute, but yeah, I actually watched it today, and I'll talk about that when we're done talking about The Bride.
But I remember, actually reading the press release a few times and being like, "Wait, is there a movie that? I mean, is there a movie before this, and then this is the sequel to?" And realizing, no, this is actually just this movie.
This is Brain Attack.
Yeah. Starring Jessie Buckley, who I think this did you hear people talk about that there was speculation she was going to be quote unquote Norbited like Eddie Murphy was when he was nominated for Dreamgirls, and then Norbit came out like during the award season
you're saying that
Dreamgirls
this influenced her not winning for him.
Well, and she did win actually. People were speculating because this movie came out in the middle of like.
Yeah, but this isn't Norbit. This is The Bride.
Well, I agree.
Plus, would this also be Brian Wilson's favorite movie? Do you remember that whole interview? Where he's like, you seen any movies lately? He's like, Norbit. I really liked it. I thought it was really funny. Blah 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 blah.
I'd forgotten.
And they waited a little bit, and then they were like, "What's your favorite movie?" And he said, "Norbit."
That's so.
Brian Wilson and movie going is an entire antechamber of madness that you can.
Right after he passed away, we talked about him in depth. So go find
out the going to ET. Yeah. No, hang on. They went to see Seconds, and it scared him so bad because it said, "Hello, welcome home, Mr. Wilson." And then he didn't go to the movies again until E.T., and then who knows what happened after that. But Norbit was his favorite film.
So we confirmed Brian Wilson has seen at least 3 films. Right.
But anyway, and it's interesting to me that, going back to this, that people would assume that about The Bride, because, I mean, it was very heavily reviled by everyone but us, I guess.
And Joe Dante, who put out a Trailers from Hell video, actually, because I randomly,
seen it.
Literally, it was a few weeks ago, I was like, I haven't watched any Trailers from Hell videos in a while. And I literally went to YouTube, typed in Trailers from Hell, saw like Joe Dante on The Bride, and like literally it's one of the newer trailers, and he talked about, actually, this is pretty good. And I think it got short shrift, and I was like, oh, okay, Joe Dante, like, I see you. I don't know what else to say. I love this movie. I kind of, when I saw what it looked like, I was like, huh. So it's like set in the 30s. Again, it's a remake of sorts of not only Bride of Frankenstein IP in quotes, which is of course a universal property. That is, this was Warner Brothers, right? I think.
Yes.
I think it was Warner Brothers. I'm pretty sure.
They're the only people who actually.
But then also
good anymore. So
Mary Shelley.
Yeah, it's kind of an adaptation of the book in its own way.
Mary Shelley is a recurring character in this movie. She's not quite in heaven. She's not quite in hell. She's basically in this purgatory state. I was talking about this with somebody a while back, describing all this, and they were looking at me like, "What? How does that work? How does that function?"
Well, because in the story, it's like the Frankenstein's monster is like basically over 100 well over 100 years old.
Yes.
And even however old the original kind of body parts were, I guess doesn't even matter. But like at that point, I
think it implies that he's had work done here and there to patch up what his body is.
But basically, that he's been alive for over 100 years into the 30s. And then it's like a movie about the 30s that doesn't have to do with the Frankenstein or Bride of Frankenstein. It's like that didn't even happen, basically. And it's like...
I mean, it got a lot of comparisons like Bonnie and Clyde or like... I think Romeo plus Juliet came up. I saw a time or two.
I can see that.
And this. And it's not as anachronistic and all over the place as that is. And I say
No, I mean,
who
it's
likes
in
that
the
movie.
30s, yeah.
But it's like
Right.
it is set in the 30s.
Yeah.
But it's definitely like it's playing fast and loose, and I love that about it with like the time period and what exactly it is.
My favorite sequence was when they go to hide in the movie theater, and he looks hilarious the whole movie too because he's
Christian
got
Bale.
because he's got like something over his mouth half the time.
Yeah.
And he like has the 3D glasses on, and he's like sitting there looking around, and he's like with the thing over his mouth is just hilarious.
And then like there's
I go to see like Dr. X, I think maybe one of those like movies.
And there's a lot of interplay in the movie between the movies themselves, especially with Christian Bale's character. And it's literally, when I think back, because I've seen this movie twice, it's both heartbreaking but also hilarious of like where he's thinking of himself in the movies and he's tap dancing and like literally
because then they have the whole Jake Gyllenhaal character as like an
this
actor,
film star that he's a huge fan of and he's obsessed
who's only
with.
in really like one scene entirely.
And when you think about the whole logic of the scene, how funny is it that like because they crashed this New York party that Jake Gyllenhaal's character's at, and clearly, if you saw what Christian Bale's character, Frank, as he's called in the movie, would look like, you would be like, oh my god,
there are a lot of parallels today to Donnie Darko, as it turns out.
That's true, yeah. You would be like, something is wrong with this person. Like, what are they?
And they kind of are looking at him, but
they
like not
kinda
overly so.
Oh, and he like comes on. I'm such a big fan. I mean, he's like, okay, thank you. And he's like,
It was
away.
the 30s though, Kyle. You know, there was a lot of weird.
There was
stuff
a lot of
going
filth
on.
back then. Yeah. But I mean, people are like, oh, it's a mess. It's like, so what?
Yeah,
like,
I don't
who
care.
cares? It's like, I mean, I don't even think it's as much of a mess as people even say that when they mean that. But I just love the shotgun blast of ideas that this was. This is definitely going to be one of my favorite movies of the year. This and something else. Well, one or two other things on this list.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about already. I'm like, okay, like 2026 is starting to present itself with a few movies that there's nothing I've given like 5 stars to just yet, but some things that I really liked a lot.
Yeah.
And again, this is to me just a really good time. And also, I feel like it got raked over the coals for what it was versus what the Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein movie was, and that got all this Oscar nominations and awards.
But I feel like mostly people didn't like it though too.
Well, there was a general so what with certain people with it, which I would agree with. And to be fair, that is going for more of like an awards prestige take on that versus this is going for like.
This is going for being a movie,
like a well-made genre exploitation.
Yeah, I mean, this is going for being a movie rather than whatever Frankenstein's supposed to be.
But this is clearly like much more irreverent take on all that than what that.
I want to tell you, Lordy, he's having a rough time right now. I mean, in terms of his stardom, like the movies he's been in is being literally a corpse, being Heathcliff, and then getting his toe cut off on Euphoria. It's been a really hard couple months for him.
He's doing that. He's in that new Ridley Scott movie. Coming out soon. Oh gosh, what's it called?
The Next Duel? I don't know. All the Money in the Duel.
As somebody who's a general Ridley Scott non-appreciator, I really actually did like The Last Duel.
There's been some movies he's kind of done the last so many years that have not been as bad as other stuff.
The Dog Stars.
What?
I don't know if you've not heard of this. Okay, I saw a trailer a while back.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so Ridley Scott.
What's it about?
After a devastating flu pandemic that almost eradicated humanity, the film centers on Higg, a former civilian pilot, and Bangley, a hardened ex-Marine, as they confront outside threats and hold out onto the possibility of a better life beyond where they currently live.
So your favorite type of movie, post-apocalyptic, huh?
Directed by Ridley freaking Scott.
Yeah, that literally. I have more runway for that sort of thing than you do. Literally blow my head off of my body right now.
However,
that is an interesting pairing.
Guy Pearce is playing Pops, a former Navy SEAL, and Seema's father, played by Margaret Qualley. By the way.
Also Allison Janney and Benedict Wong. Okay,
all the homies. But so Guy Pearce is Pops.
Remember Benedict Wong in Weapons? That whole scene where she like comes in and is like in his house and starts like cutting herself up, and he's like, I'm calling the police. Yeah.
Someone who is a little bit more on Weapons. That scene was very like, what is going on here?
I really like, just keep talking about that for a second. What I really love about that scene is it's like, I love scenes in movies where like people are preparing food and get interrupted by some massive.
Happens a lot.
Yeah, and I'll give you some examples. So like that's one where they're like, oh, let's have these hot dogs. Everything's cool. It's like a day off because he's like the principal or whatever. Yeah. It's like it's a day off. Yeah. And then don't worry, we'll get back to the bride in a second.
And he's even like getting moved to a new school, and they don't tell the staff of said school.
Right.
If you know, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. IYKY.
Yeah.
But
IYKYK.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know. Anyway, if I don't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I always read it as like, but anyway, that like so then he's like, they're like, oh yeah, and then she like comes in and like screws everything up. One of my favorite versions of this is when Cheech Marin makes like the best looking sandwich ever on Lost, and then gets interrupted by something with Hurley going on. It's like, and I haven't even seen that whole show, but I remember watching you watch that one time, and it's always stuck out in my brain of like, did Cheech Marin ever get to eat that sandwich? Like, Revolt of the Zombies, I guess, is that movie, right? Is what it's saying that was in The Bride.
It's the sequel to White Zombie too, apparently.
Yeah.
You're half right.
Right. Yeah, not Dr. X. Dr. X, well then, okay, so I was thinking of Dr. X, but then I knew there was another Dr. X movie after that. I think that second one had Bogart in it, maybe?
Yes, I
Return
think
of
so.
Dr. X?
Yeah.
I don't know. Both of them had Lionel Atwill, I think.
Now I'm just thinking of Humphrey Bogart in more like mad scientist movies.
Because that's that movie where he's like standing there.
You want to reanimate a corpse.
Because that's that movie where he's standing there and he's like scared, but his face doesn't change, but he like smashes a beaker in his hand and like doesn't change his facial expression at all. It's like, what?
Yeah.
So weird. Anyway. No, I mean, just to talk about The Bride a little bit more, I mean, and my kind of subtitle for my review was The Bride is being ignored.
Oh, you have to read.
Yeah, I'm going to,
okay.
When I said The Bride is being ignored, how boring. It's just, to me, the ultimate version of just like, why? That's so boring.
Yeah.
I mean, I said this, too. I tweeted what Norman Mailer said, he was talking about people call me a male chauvinist pig. Well, that's dull. That's dull, you know. Like, but I took that whole part where he said it's just really dull to talk in such thick, weighty terms of intellectual pollution. Yeah. Like, you know, it's how I feel about the entire discourse around The Bride. Like you said, it's like, yes, this movie's a mess, but that's kind of why it's great. I mean, like,
I think mess is the wrong word. It's like it's an experiment.
Yeah,
more
sure.
So,
well, or maybe that it's not it's unconventional. Definitely. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, that's just stupid. That's just not really interesting.
I wanted to laugh out loud in the movie where they're dancing and putting on the Ritz is playing.
Yeah.
It's a clearly young Frankenstein. It's like the movie's very film literate and having a lot of fun. I feel, and then like there's also just scenes of discomfort, but also that make you laugh. I mean, I think there's another Maggie Gyllenhaal movie she directed. It got acclaimed a few years ago. I can't remember the name of it. I'm going to find it really quick. I think it's The Lost Daughter.
Oh yeah, I forgot she made that. Yeah.
Olivia Colman was in, and I heard it was really good.
I heard
but
a lot
I
of
didn't
people
see
say
it.
good stuff about
But
it.
with this, anyways, she really mastered the fine line between horror and kind of maybe out and out comedy in various places. But like the scene of
I think the movie's more. It is a horror movie, I guess, definitely, but it's a little more of like a thriller. Well, this is. I mean, you could have a whole Louis.
I was gonna bring this up. The scene of Louis Cancel Me, one of the great last names of all time.
Mm-hmm. It's probably Cancel Me or something.
Yeah.
It's like Cancel Me. Yeah.
But like,
my friend
where
Ryan and I laugh about that all the time.
He pulls over them, and he's basically like, gonna run roughshod over Ida / Penelope Rogers / the bride. Yeah. And how that whole scene plays out, and
it feels like a scene from Bonnie and Clyde or something, or Natural Born Killers, even like a version of that. You know?
I will say, like, the Penelope Cruz and Peter Sarsgaard stuff, I actually really like their scenes, but like I felt like that was kind of among the more unnecessary things to the movie.
Yeah, because then it's trying to connect the whole thing of Sarsgaard knowing the Ida character.
Yeah, that seems a little arch and like a.
I really love the sequence at the beginning where she killed the Ida character and turned into, eventually turned into the bride. But I love that. I think that sequence.
A friend of the show, John Magaro.
Yeah,
he's.
We also have to mention the guy that does the voice for Wade on GTA 5 is in this. And you immediately hear his voice and go, "Oh yeah, that's Wade."
He also is very memorably in Live by Night, the Ben Affleck movie. I remember.
So he's basically either a Rasta white guy, redneck in a video game, or he's in period dramas or 1930s period movies.
Didn't you love too Jeannie Berlin? I forgot she was in this as Euphronius' maid, which Euphronius is played by Annette Bening.
Well, that was one of my. Also, I was going to say one of the funniest parts of the movie is the ending where they're shooting them. They come in and they're shooting them. The cops are getting a shootout, and it cuts to her kind of out of focus in the background, with her hands to her face screaming, and you can't hear it because it's silent, but it's hilarious. Yeah, that and what I liked about those sequences too really reminded me a lot of the Frederick March, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The way the set looked, I could tell looked like that. Have you ever seen that? I don't think you have.
No, I
haven't seen it in a long time, but it's pretty rough for it's very pre-code. I don't even know how they even got it. Do some of the things then. It's kind of shocking, but
so needle drop of the year watch for the year in that movie with the Monster Mash. Just
I think putting on the Ritz, I like.
I like that too. That's
Monster Mash is just funny.
Yeah.
Well, then they even have that whole thing where they go and kill the bad guy at the end while that's happening too.
Yeah.
And
I think also one of the clumsiest things in the movie, which makes me laugh, and I'll shake my head, so it's fine. But there's the bride inspires a movement, and it's
that's
just
trying to be kind of like a Natural Born Killers-esque a little bit, because that's one of the few things.
I didn't really hear Natural Born Killers get mentioned all that much. So that's actually a good movie to mention with this too.
And this movie, it's a lot like Bonnie and Clyde. But the thing that's interesting about Bonnie and Clyde, the Arthur Penn film, of course, is what we're talking about, is that it's not really interested in depicting that very much, like the whole cult that kind of happened around the bank robber culture of the 30s. It's not really interested in that. I think there's some scenes where people say, "Oh, I know who you are," or whatever. But I feel like there's even more scenes of that in something like Public Enemies, for example, where that isn't the case for that.
Yeah.
And I think that made Bonnie and Clyde age way better as a movie. Is that it's just no, we're giving you what it is. We're not giving a kind of like a commentary on it.
I think part of that too, Bonnie and Clyde probably can get away with that because 30 years, honestly, it was just over 30 years before they were a thing when that movie came out, and people would have known and remembered, oh yeah, that thing, and that, I feel like that's more of the fact that they were kind of pseudo celebrated by the press when they were around, and that people not even people super old in the 60s would have known that was attached to it, so the movie doesn't have to.
And what's also funny is that there really have only been a couple versions of Bonnie and Clyde that have been made since Bonnie and Clyde.
Yeah.
Which is weird, don't you think?
Yeah.
That movie is still that big of a deal.
Right.
That nobody even wants to touch it.
That's probably among the first, older-ish movies younger cinephiles will watch because of, oh, I know Bonnie and Clyde. That's something that the movie's endured so much.
Just for the ending, if nothing else. I mean, and I've seen that ending a lot, but every time I see it, I'm still this is really intense. A lot for that time. Even just the effect of having him crush the apple in his hand while he's getting shot is such a small thing, but that's really well done as a version of violence there. But yeah, that's what I was going to say about this, is that it reminded me some of the V for Vendetta stuff in the V for Vendetta movie of people wearing the Guy Fawkes mask and okay, no, you okay? You remember that where he shoots a gun up in there and that stuff starts falling and he runs out or whatever. But yeah, that stuff was kind of dumb. I think also because you're very much, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but you're the guy. I don't want to step on your toes here because you're the guy who always mentions the fact that things are anachronistic historically sometimes. But the 30s was just not really a time of like women's liberation, really particularly at all. If anything, it was the 20s.
Right.
And so to kind of put that in there, kind of like makes the movie a little more wobbly than it should be.
Yeah, I think in part that was conflating the whole flapper culture of the 20s.
And that just doesn't really fit.
Because if anything, like you said, the 30s was a little bit more of a step back for women because women were forced into more traditional gender roles in the wake of the Depression. But anyways.
Yeah. Well, to real quickly, I guess to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I started my review
yes.
in a kind of, and this is not AI because I don't ever do that. I just want to be clear that it sounds like I've been accused of it or something.
Yeah.
You know, well, actually, I read an interesting article. I'll make this quick, but I read an interesting article in the New York Magazine here a while back that was talking about that people who write well are now suffering because people just think it's automatically AI. And I just got real frustrated. I'm not saying that's a bad article to write because if that's true,
that
it's
makes
true.
sense, yeah.
But I got really frustrated by that I was like, well, I don't care. I'm good at it.
Yeah.
I don't care what people think. You know, I'm just like, well, whatever. Then you check it, and if it says it, whatever. I don't care. But anyway, I wrote some like 1930s newspaper headlines at the beginning of the review. DOA, Messy Lark the bride never finds time to rise from the slab. That's the first one. Maggie Gyllenhaal's magnum nope us twitches narratively like a desiccated corpse. This is my favorite one. Putting on the shits. Yes. Christian Bale's Frankenstein is a ham on rye, hold the mayo. And the buck, and then in parentheses, Lee stops here. Will the starlet ever shoot the moon?
That's so good.
Yeah,
all those.
Putting on the shits.
Anyways,
but yeah, I
feel like the dust is kind of settled. This movie's largely going to be pretty forgotten about. I feel like it's not even going to be like, oh my god, it's so awful. It's just going to be forgotten about.
I think that it will also though have a kind of cult that'll grow around it eventually.
Yeah. There's probably going to be those random couples that do Halloween costumes this year. Laney and I joked about that a while back.
I'm probably going to do, unless y'all do that, I'm probably going to do Frankenstein's monster in this and wear the 3D glasses and the thing over the mouth.
Yeah.
Which is funny because that kind of looks a lot visually like The Invisible Man. That's what I love about the movie. It's like all over the place as far as what it's just kind of grabbing whatever it can.
The shadow also.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. Honestly,
I liked it a lot. I loved it.
So before we move on, I'll talk real briefly about Donnie Darko while we're on the subject.
Oh, sure. Gyllenhaal, obviously.
Yes,
Gyllenhaal.
and she's in that too. Like I said, one of my favorite lines of all time is, "You're such a F-eye."
Yeah.
Did you just call me an F-eye? You can go suck a F. Like, what? So I haven't ever seen this movie before. I'm 27 years old. It's a little bit younger than I am. It came out in 2001, but I started barely writing a review for it. I'm going to make it kind of not long, but not real short either. That this movie, became very synonymous with a certain type of movie at that time. I mean, it was.
I could talk a little bit more about that.
Right. Well, you go ahead. And,
this was for millennials, both older millennials and millennials my age. This was like one of a handful of movies. I wrote about this recently, briefly with the Truman Show. There's like a list of these like turn of the century, which is weird to think to say about the 90s and 2000s, but that's where we're at now.
Turn of the millennium.
Right. Turn of the millennium. Like puzzle box / mind F movies that got a lot of people into movies. And some of those were for me, like Memento, The Matrix to an extent. The Truman Show wasn't as much, although I had a recent rewatch of that, and I really liked it more than I ever have. I will
of American
say.
Beauty that were more like fantastical.
Donnie Darko's one of them too. Fight Club's one of them.
Fight Club,
but these there was just a certain era in time where these movies were like. I won't say they've been greatly diminished, but there's been other things and people have kind of moved on. But where it was and. This movie, Donnie Darko,
kind of goes in
was written ad nauseum about on the internet and theorized, and it was like some of the earliest versions of online cinephile culture, quote unquote, trying to break a movie. But
Joe Blow,
JoeBlow.com, going to Buttonomathon this year.
Right. Buttonomathon.
Harry Knowles, look it up. But anyways, that was a whole era and time where that was just really in vogue, and oh my god, it's just so. It's a mind F. Man.
I described it as that it was everywhere from Hot Topic to the Weird Kid's Notebook, what's the difference? You
Oh.
know, like, more or less, it's just
Yeah,
like...
that's
No,
true.
I mean, when I was growing up, and it was like the movie of a version of that thing, you know.
Yeah.
And that...
Being John Malkovich was another one.
Yeah, and that's probably one of the better ones of that type
By the
of-
way, most of these movies I named are good.
Yeah.
Some of them are
and
great.
I do think Donnie Darko is good with a lowercase G.
Yeah.
Um,
That'd be a great rap name, by the way, lowercase G.
yeah. yeah.
LCG.
Now I mean it
LCG sound system.
I actually like them okay, what I've heard. But anyway, it's fascinating to me though that you kind of remove yourself from a project for so long that when you're ready to talk about it, nobody else is.
Sure.
Now, but I'm not necessarily ready to talk about it because I think it's a pretty surface level movie actually for what it's about.
Yes.
And
I've only seen this once, and it's been like
have you
15 years
well,
ago
and I guess
now.
if you don't want to, because I actually think this is important. If you don't want spoilers on this movie, maybe just don't listen to this part because I didn't know very much about the movie inherently.
Sure.
So like the surprise of the movie will kind of be spoiled, I guess, if you do listen to this. But did you ever notice that there's that whole part where it says like the last temptation of Christ is like on the marquee with Evil Dead?
Oh,
and I was
yeah.
like, that's really weird, and
Yeah.
didn't think any more about it. But the whole movie, by the end, because then he goes back in time and gets killed by the falling
plane
engine.
Yeah.
And in its own way, it's almost like the whole movie was his imaginary version of the Last Temptation of Christ.
Right.
And it's like so random and like okay, but ultimately, and I was very surprised by like basically, I guess what you could view the movie as is him following his like instincts of insanity, all led to like 2 murders ultimately of like the girl he was in love with and then the guy that was the Frank character or whatever.
Yeah.
That was kind of low-key hilarious when she got run over by the car at the end. Was like, I was
Yeah.
like, wait, did that just happen? Like, I was like, wow. But that basically him then going back and say, I'll sacrifice myself to for these people don't die. I will sacrifice my. Well, I guess it even implies that the mom and the daughter died too. I don't know. It's kind of vague, but these I'll sacrifice myself because I just know all. And it's very, the whole movie's very like, white male rage, like, kind of, I'm just so smart and nobody gets it.
Fight Club, you were mentioning
Right,
as a comparison
yeah.
point.
And one other aspect of the movie I do think that's interesting is like his own version of a conspiracy about things.
Yes.
And then also that one woman who's like the mean gym teacher who's like obsessed with the Patrick Swayze, like, happiness, wellness cult guy who's like
Not
has
Todd
this whole
Solondz
like
happiness. Yeah.
no, he has this whole a child pornography
yeah.
ring,
Okay.
and she's like saying there's a conspiracy against him or whatever, and it made me kind of think like the movie actually is trying to say something about like the nature of delusional conspiracy. But I feel like it does too much to kind of be like, oh, poor Jake Gyllenhaal, the whole movie, that it kind of neuters its own, like, statement.
You might laugh
know?
at this.
go
I
ahead.
can't remember because it's been a while. To what extent do you think the movie is trying to live in a David Lynchian
Oh, it
lane?
definitely
is.
is.
Like, because I know it has dream logic
Well,
stuff
yeah,
in
it's
it.
like
but
it's like weird. It's like a combination between like the suburbia of American Beauty and David Lynch. It's like trying
Blue
to do
Velvet
both,
or Twin Peaks or something too.
I mean, yeah. So it is doing.
I
versions of that.
can't honestly can't remember. I've been wanting to rewatch it for a while. We've
It's-
talked about
it's-
probably doing an episode on it in the future with something else.
I mean,
so.
well, and honestly, I wanted to watch it just so I can watch Southland Tales because I've that movie I would find I feel way more interesting as far as what, even if I don't like it, as far as what it is and what it's about.
We might need to make that happen soon because I want to watch it too. So,
yeah, because I've had the Blu-ray for like 2 or 3 years and just haven't watched it, but because that movie I already know is going to give me like a massive nostalgia trip because of the way it looks visually.
yeah.
Because there's that whole famous sequence of, Justin Timberlake singing the song by the Killers. And, like, when I see that, I literally think, Lakewood Campground.
Yeah.
Like everything about that
Yeah.
looks like when I was a child, and I'm just like, it's so weird.
Circa 2005 or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, that. So yeah, it was okay. I mean, there were things I liked about it. I think that it's a movie that's both knows it's kind of smart, too smart for its own good, and then randomly deploys actually kind of interesting intelligence at random other places that I'm like, huh. But ultimately, it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Just it's kind of funny to watch a movie that's that like that and just move on from it pretty quickly. But like,
speaking of a more negative version of okay, whatever. Lee Cronin's The Mummy. I really don't have much to say about this, other than I see your demon possession movie that you're trying to attach mummy iconography to make it look like it's something different.
Right.
Next, as far to quote Tony Kornheiser, it's like where my mind's at. What did you think of it though?
You might be surprised. I've thought a lot about this movie since I saw it, and I feel exactly the same way. I
knew you were going to swerve.
No, I mean,
it's not awful, but similar. And I thought this was even worse than the Wolfman movie that came out. I
actually thought that
back.
was at least mildly underrated, but
this is in the same lane of like, okay, why did you do this?
Right.
Like, why? What was the point of all this? Like, I could have went and saw something else in the same time that I saw this in this same theater, and I don't know.
I mean, it was
empty.
I'm less angry at this movie than I normally would be because I'm so used to seeing the great horror trailer get effed over by the time it gets to the theater as the feature, which is not the case for another movie we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I feel like even sold itself short for how good it was. But I fear that a little bit with the new Evil Dead movie, which I don't really have a stake in those movies, but that new trailer for that was like intentionally artistic and kind of weird and different and very simple, but where I'm like, that I will also probably be very disappointed by. But yeah, and then interestingly, he had just made Evil Dead Rise, which I don't think is like necessarily a underrated gem or anything, but I was quite impressed with at the time, and thought was, I don't want to say underrated, but just kind of like, okay, this is pretty good, like, randomly kind of movie.
Yeah.
Whereas this felt like it kind of wanted to be a version of that, and also wanted to be The Exorcist, and just kind of was just whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and I love what it's trying to be, which is to take the like, mummy, kind of like undead mummy aesthetic to like the modern day and like a suburban kind of thing. But if you really want to do a version of that, you need to do it in like, take that, but do it in a snowstorm instead. I already have a whole movie made up in my mind of this that's basically a remake of this movie. To be like, let's do something way different than even this, but whatever. That's the only way you can really do that, because this movie kind of teased that, but then ultimately it was just like, oh yeah, but like it's in the, but it was in like Arizona or whatever, or what Arizona the movie was set in. And it's like that's also kind of a desert, so like
New Mexico.
The movie had no balls to like. Yeah, New Mexico.
Yeah.
The movie had no balls to like kind of change the visual aesthetic.
Also,
location aesthetic.
I hate to call actors out, but Jack Rayner, it's not happening.
The same thing with him in Midsommar.
Well,
I mean,
I was thinking about this, like him in Midsommar, his like kind of obliviousness / selfishness. He's not a selfish character in this movie, as much.
Well, I mean, I would argue he's maybe not as much a one as people say he is in Midsommar either. But I'm a man, so I guess I don't know.
It's debate. It can go back and forth on that.
Yeah, I'm not even interested in discussing it. So anyway, move on.
But like, his I don't know, like lack of charisma maybe as a star or as an actor actually it kind of adds to the movie's engineering not you to like him in Midsommar. This, it's like, oh, he's supposed to be like the lead caretaker / father / husband in this family, and I don't really care what happens to him.
No,
it's just so like, okay, I don't
really care what happens to Katie either. I mean, what happened to Katie?
I think I don't say this very often. This movie could have benefited from the stars like that made me care about, like people that I had more prior associations with.
A lot of people said this too. It could have easily been 20 minutes shorter.
Yes, it was.
It was long. It was like 2 hours.
133 minutes.
Yeah, that's too long. for
Yeah.
this. I mean, hell, it probably could have been an hour and a half if you really want. I mean, it was just very like
It's done quite well financially. It's made $88 million on a
What?
$22
Are you
million
serious?
budget. Yeah.
That's crazy. That it
Meanwhile,
made
The
that much money.
Bride cost $80 to $90 million and grossed $24 million. So it's almost the opposites, like for both of those. Yeah, I really don't have much to say. I didn't really like it, but whatever.
Yeah.
As Levi likes to say, no skin off my nuts. The drama.
Speaking of skin off your nuts.
I don't know. I think it's a fine enough title. It leaves a little to be desired. I guess it's just so vague.
Yeah, I don't like.
People are like, what is that? The drama. I don't know. But it also, obviously, there is dramatic stuff.
Yeah, but
movie.
I don't think that's a good name.
I agree.
Well, it's a good thing that's the movie's only real problem because everything else about it.
Yeah, so
Great.
the drama, this is already, I think, by the year's end, is going to like live with people in a pretty big way. And so it's going to probably not necessarily get a lot of awards buzz or hype, but it's going to probably end up on a lot of top 10 lists. It certainly will probably end up on mine, I'm pretty sure. All about Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. It's a happily engaged couple whose relationship is tested by an unexpected revelation during the week before their wedding. This is from director Christopher Borgli, who had previously done Dream Scenario, which I'm sure we touched on to some degree back in the day on the pod. He also did this movie, Sick of Myself, in Norway. This movie really sold itself big on the trailer, which like hints very heavily on, like, what is the big... So in the trailer, it shows Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, who are about to be married, talking with some of their friends who are involved with the wedding, and they all go around and say, what's the, like, crazy, your deepest, darkest secret or craziest thing about you or experience you've had. And in the trailer, you get a little bit of snippets of some of the other ones, but then it cuts around, like, what she said. And there's so much like, what did she say? What was it? I don't know to what extent we want to talk about what that was.
I would rather not.
Yeah.
Just because I don't want... Because I knew what it was going into the movie, which kind of disappointed me just that I found out. But yeah.
I think it's a movie that handles some very sensitive subjects fairly well and fairly...
The comedy doesn't come off as
also
bad either.
Yeah, no, and... It is, I mean, I think it really rides the line of being a comedy drama.
Yeah. The comedy drama, how about that?
Yeah.
Does that work? The dramedy.
Untitled comedy drama, that should be the name.
Movie.
Yeah.
How about that?
A movie.
A film.
I saw a film, as I recall.
It was a horror film.
But I really thought a lot of this, and, Zendaya in particular is like going through a whole moment right now. She's to me on track to probably be Entertainer of the Year between this, Euphoria. She's going to be in
Spider-Man.
Well, that, and then also she's got a role in The Odyssey. She's just having a really big banner year.
Oh yeah, I love Zendaya.
And
anyway,
she is somebody who like, with this and with Challengers a few years ago, which we really liked a lot. Really, and then obviously with Euphoria, is really putting herself in like very vulnerable positions and still, and also the Dune movie, Dune 3 also, I don't think we mentioned. But
that's also
obviously
huge. I knew there was something else. I was trying to think of what it was.
So she's really having a big moment right now.
Yeah.
And Robert Pattinson also is obviously consistently has great instincts and is a great actor. So,
by the way, before we move too far from it, the new season Euphoria we both like. Everybody else kind of doesn't like. So whatever. I don't know.
I mean,
it's not as good. I don't think.
I do think like this has actually nothing to do with whether it's good or not.
Yeah.
I feel like the time for it has kind of passed.
Oh yeah.
As far as when it was a huge key cultural artifact, and people have there's probably people who don't even know it's going on.
Well, and the funny thing is that the show. I feel like the season is almost its own metatextual commentary on that.
Yeah.
That it's like now it's kind of a different show and it's kind of just shrugging and it's like now we're doing other things and we don't really care whether you like it or not. Like, not to defend the show because I mean there's things about this new season I don't like. I mean, but overall I'm fine with. I mean that happened with Atlanta too, strangely, where like it had this moment and then it just had too much time off and everybody. And I mean I never even finished it. I mean so.
Yeah, I didn't
and I'm thinking about going back through it again at some point soon because I mean, when that show was on, that was like the coolest thing ever. I mean, you know,
especially the summer of 2018.
Yeah.
Was that the second season? I think.
Yeah, the Teddy Perkins stuff. Yeah, it was and then even when that third season came back, people kind of talked about it for a little bit about the stuff of that boy that was like with that white family and all the like white face stuff or whatever, and like that was pretty interesting. But then there was that character who kept showing up throughout the season, and it was like, what?
And it kind of ends on this moment at the end of the season. I'm like, it was him.
Yeah, but then the fourth season, nobody talked about it at all. So it's like,
that was the last one, right?
Yeah.
The fourth one.
And then they had that whole episode with, I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day, just explaining it. The whole, like, Liam Neeson playing himself, talking about, I don't really regret my comments.
Yeah.
And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, it's just, so, yeah, there's a lot that I feel like we all missed out on at the end of that show. But, yeah, Euphoria is kind of in that place, too. But
I think, like I said, it's just the time and place for it's kind of passed it, quote-unquote, passed it by. Because also, it's been talked about a lot that original those two seasons and this third season too, it's like the show's actually produced a lot of stars that have actually consistently been in lots of other things.
Yeah, because even I don't want to get her name wrong. Is it Barbie Ferreira? Is that her name? Or no, it's not Barbie Ferreira. It's the girl
Bobby Brown.
The girl that was Kat on that show.
Oh, yeah.
Kat.
I was being sarcastic by when I said Bobby Brown.
Yeah, Barbie Ferreira. Yeah, Barbie Ferreira. I was right. That she was in that new version they did of Faces of Death.
Oh, right.
Which, I mean, nobody really cares, but like I just noticed she was on something while this was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, basically, there's been a lot of people that have come out of that show. I've been surprised that they've had Eric Dane in the season as much as they did.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was going to be in it at all.
The guy played Fez. I know that in the show he's still alive.
That makes no sense. I don't even know why they're doing that. What's the end game on that situation? I don't know. Anyway, we like it. So whatever.
I'm still an episode behind you, I think, where I'm at.
No, we're caught up now because I haven't watched the newest one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, Zendaya having a moment.
So yes, so with this, what I really loved about the drama, though, other than the whole like conceit of what it is and the controversy of what it is, which I felt, and just to say, it has something to do with our jobs, kind of.
Yes.
That it did not in any way,
I was not
offend me or like. Which, I mean, that hasn't happened to me. So I know there were people that when it came out, that's actually how I found out about what it was because some people came out and said this happened to my family, blah, blah, blah. And I think it's exploiting that. And most everybody, though, has been pretty like, no, yeah, this is fine. And everybody's fine with it. But other than that, I think the movie is like some of the best, one of the best exemplifications of the Nouvelle Vague in a modern context. The editing in this movie is just literally otherworldly.
Really right.
I've never seen anything like that in like a relatively mainstream, even independent American movie. Is like pretty out there.
Yeah.
And it was directed by a guy that did Dream Scenario. So it operates in some fantastical elements, but of imagery. But for the most part, it's pretty much just more about like the way people imagine conversations can go rather than like based on what the thing that happened. It's not like this image. I mean, it has that in the movie a little bit, but it doesn't overdo it, I don't think.
I remember seeing Dream Scenario and thinking it was pretty good. I liked it, but thinking, I think this guy probably could do something even better, and I feel like already this is evolution of that.
Yeah.
What's interesting is with both of those movies, they're more about like the fallout from like things that may or may not have happened, and more so on the didn't happen, and how that still impacts our views of people.
Yeah, I mean the movie talked about like the difference between thought and action, which is something I'm very obsessed with. As well, not to go in this direction too much, but as an OCD person, I think a lot about the difference. Is something you have to reckon with is the difference between a thought and actually doing the thought.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are really worried about even dealing with that. And I mean, I wouldn't say the whole movie's about Me Too exactly, but it is about that in its own way. And I mean, I think the politics of Me Too have changed a lot over the basically 10 years that that's been a thing to where people are starting to kind of, I think, sort of begin to understand the difference between saying something and actually
I
doing
think
something.
the acknowledgement that there's a spectrum.
Right, and this is one of the first movies to just definitively say that, I think.
Yeah.
So
I think it's actually done fairly well at the box office. It had a budget of $28 million and it made $122 million. So that's
kind of surprising.
I think Zendaya probably has a lot to do with that.
And Pattinson in his own way.
Yeah.
And I think people just wanted to know what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, they were like, because I remember we were like, what is it? Like, and then I kind of found out. And
I did not know until I saw it. And I was like, oh, something that I would not have really thought about or predicted.
Yeah. Because it's so taboo, that's not something that people think of. Mother Mary,
newest David Lowery movie.
Yeah, so we'll move on. Mother Mary, the new David Lowery movie. We don't really have a whole lot to say about this. We liked it a lot.
I did,
but it's just kind of a movie that I don't know. There's not a whole lot.
$20 million budget. I hate to be talking all about box office, but $3 million it made, so it was a big loss.
Well, this movie also kind of traffics in a lot of the same thought processes. I think is The Moment.
Yes,
which came, the Charlie XCX movie that came out,
which we like.
And didn't she do some music for this movie too?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, Spooky Magic.
Yeah.
Or no, Spooky Action
is
what it was in this movie. A song called Spooky Action. Which in Donnie Darko, there was something called...
There's some spooky action for sure.
There was something called... there was that like group of girl dancers that Patrick Swayze was like backing or whatever that was called like something magic. And it made me think of Spooky Action the whole time I was watching it. Anyway, it was a good movie. I mean, I really liked, what was the, not Anne Hathaway, but the other actress's name that's in Mother Mary?
Michaela Cole.
Yeah, I thought she was really good.
I know she's in the new, the Christophers, the new Steven Soderbergh movie, and has been getting great reviews.
So, I think she was really great in this.
Has, like, definitely one of the most unique cinematic faces I've seen in a while that you don't feel like you've really seen many people that look like her.
I mean, I feel like I could say more about this movie, but honestly, like, this is a random thing to say, and I said it after we were leaving the movie to you, that I feel like I could easily write, like, a whole film book about David Lowery, and he's not even necessarily in my top so many favorite filmmakers, but his movies are just, I think, have an interesting
I'm more and more of a fan of him as I think about him. This is his first movie since Peter Pan and Wendy. Yeah. But then he did The Green Knight a little bit before that. In my head, that's the last one he did. But I think Peter Pan and Wendy might have been a Disney Plus.
Yeah, we watched
movie.
that. You don't remember watching that?
Yeah, no, I do. I'm just saying.
Yeah, no,
I think it just exclusively.
I think it either exclusively came out on that or it barely came out at all in theaters.
It premiered on Disney Plus.
Yeah, so whatever. And he of course did Pete's Dragon.
He is one of the rare people who can actually go between doing like a big Disney movie and then his little independent movies he wants to do. I heard him say on a podcast where he was getting interviewed, and I think the interviewer was like setting it up to be like, "Oh, you got to do the Disney movies so you can make your independent movies." And he said what I thought was quite sincerely from his perspective, no, making a Disney movie is one of the most fun things in the world. He really loves doing that kind of thing, but then also doing, obviously, all these other ones he does.
That kind of reminds me when Jeff Nichols was talking about when he got in development hell with some of those projects for a while, like Alien Nation and something else, I can't remember. And he was on The Big Picture talking about it. He was like, and they asked me if I'd do it, and I said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
The way he said it, he was talking about for him, money gets real scary and complicated. Yeah. He don't like dealing with it, but it's funny. He was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that at all. Anyway, but this was a good really good movie. I just don't have a whole lot to talk about it as far as
I quite liked it. It's one of 5 Anne Hathaway movies this year.
I feel like the Anne Hathaway conversation is one I need to have some other time. The Devil Wears Prada 2.
Which I saw, and we're not going to talk about much here. It's quite liked. I thought it was definitely better than it could have been.
I haven't seen that one yet, but because we just saw the first one recently, so I haven't seen the new one.
The Odyssey, The End of Oak Street, which is the new David Robert Mitchell movie.
Oh, God, okay.
And Verity, which is a Colin Hoover adaptation.
Remember David Robert Mitchell?
Yeah.
Barely.
I've heard from a few people say that this is actually the best Colleen Hoover book directed by Michael Showalter of Hot
That's
American Summer.
randomly something. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see.
What do you think about this movie, by the way, since we're talking about David Robert Mitchell real quick? This movie that's like a It Follows kind of thing, Leviticus or whatever. We've seen that trailer twice. What are your thoughts on that?
When I first saw that, I thought it was legit like a It Follows sequel, but like somewhere else. Yeah. And it's also like got a...
It's a gay, a whole kind of gay
aspect, love story.
Yeah. And it's kind of coming out of those like Philippou Brothers production kind of circle.
Yeah,
who made the Talk to Me?
Yeah, it looks okay.
It's just very like disarming trailer.
It's one of those things that I'll probably never end up seeing, but I'll be like, oh yeah, I remember.
It's just something we haven't talked about, so I figured I'd bring it up. But yeah,
so Mother Mary we quite like, but it does feel like David Lowery going, I'm going to do this kind of thing real quick. It's like
but it's
like I was telling you this. Yeah. I was talking about this with Lainey too, my wife. Like.
My wife.
I don't do that as much as you would think. As much as I thought I would do. I still don't think he's made the absolute pinnacle of what he's capable of making. I think A Ghost Story is very strong. I think The Green Knight has grown on me a lot over the years. I think that's pretty strong. I think Old Man and the Gun is really fun and really good, and probably like for me the last really memorable Robert Redford performance ever. But I still feel like there's something we're not quite getting that will happen with him one day. I don't know when, but because he like I said, he's got a very open, like I guess you could say filmography where there's just a lot of different things in there that there's something for everybody. So
there's something about Mother Mary.
There's something about that. Speaking of, you mentioned that one horror movie. Recent horror movie that Levi and I saw. It actually it played at TIFF last year.
Yeah, and just notably, it was made for only about $500,000 to $1 million.
Really?
Yeah, which is kind of a talking point about the movie.
Yeah,
and this is one of the most well-made horror movies of the past, honestly, 20 years. I'd say maybe as far as just technically.
Yeah.
Obsession. Not the Brian De Palma remake of Vertigo, which could be 5 different movies, but specifically Obsession. No, not that one.
So this is written, directed, and edited by Curry Barker, who I wondered at first if it was related to Clive Barker. In my head, I was wondering that, but apparently not. Curry's from Mobile, Alabama. So yeah.
He's apparently the voice on the phone in the movie. That's the
is he
guy.
really?
Yeah, because I was wondering. I was like, who is that? And that's who it is, apparently.
Okay. I know I've heard he's got his start doing like comedy and horror stuff on YouTube, and that's a whole now mini industry of a lot of horror filmmakers are coming from the YouTube space, which makes sense that would be this new.
There was that whole thing about that movie Shelby Oaks. Last year that people were talking about that in that context, and it was supposedly really bad and nobody liked it. So I talked about when I wrote my kind of review of this movie, I was talking about what's his next movie called?
Anything But Ghosts.
Okay.
Aaron Paul's in it. Bryce Dallas Howard. Violet McGraw.
Everybody's going to want to start being his movies now, probably. I said as far as like other than Jordan Peele, Curry Barker's already won the comedian horror filmmaker war, I think.
Well, real quick, Anything But Ghosts, it's actually an interesting premise. It says, 2 fake paranormal investigators must face actual ghosts while dealing with the deception of their fraudulent business. It's like people who aren't actually paranormal experts who have to deal with real ghosts. Yeah. So that's a funny idea. I mean, that's been a whole, like you said, a whole little thing that's been going on also the last few years.
Because, oh gosh, his name just left me.
Well, I don't know if you know this, Levi, but both comedy and horror, they play on our base instincts in really similar ways. Like,
Zach Cregger, he's another big one, obviously, that I like better than you do, but this is automatically better than those. I don't know. I feel like Weapons in this are pretty close, but I think this is better just by nature of what it is. This movie's not very funny either, I don't think, inherently. You know what I mean? Because a lot of these movies, even Jordan Peele's movies, rightfully, they go in these directions of, we're still going to make you laugh a little bit. This movie
I think
didn't
most
really...
of all Get Out as far as his three, but yeah.
But, and Nope, aspects of that I think are inherently funny. Just the dialogue's inherently funny.
Us is, and I say this as someone who that's my favorite of his. That's decidedly not funny.
It's very unfunny.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the funniest moment in that whole movie is probably when Tim Heidecker's, like, other... goes to like shake the hand and does the like thing is pretty genuinely funny. But they basically sound like Emily Blunt in the trailer for Disclosure Day, and then the friggin' nuns like.
That sound like when I'm in Golden Corral.
But overall, I felt like this movie. I felt like this movie was pretty unfunny, which is good, I think. Because I think sometimes they go in these directions, try to make stuff a little bit too funny.
This movie does like very basic stuff with shadows. That's like very disturbing. And
I mean, I said in my review that this honestly sounds a little bit too pretentious. I mean, it's literally if Gordon Willis directed a horror movie, just straight up is the only thing I could compare it to in my mind.
That's an interesting.
Is that half of the movie you don't even see her face. Edie Navarrete, is that her name? Or Indy Navarrete? I can't remember her first name.
Her name is Indy Navarrete.
Like half the movie, she's not even visible. I feel like, which is interesting.
Yeah.
To me, but anyway.
Yeah, really good. Really, I think there, as Levi was alluding to earlier, there's like a whole industrial complex of horror movies that they know how to cut good trailers, and then you go and see them, and it's like, okay, so what?
Yeah.
Like. This actually, I really admired how this movie scopes out a little bit of a mythology / how is this happening, but doesn't give you nearly you leave wanting more, but deep down I'm glad that they didn't give me more, because the banality of the evil of the phone hotline of like you call up and the guy's just so bored.
Yeah.
And that's kind of funny. It's just like that. Wait, there's a hotline for people who are dealing with this.
But then
who's behind it?
Right.
What is it?
Well, something
like,
that I think's weird too is that like then he's like, "Oh, do you want to talk to her?" And then it's like you can talk to the person over the phone if you want to, the real person. Well, and you're not always going to have a wish that like. Has to do with that, but like I guess if it is, you can't, and that's like really frightening. And
then you just hear screams immediately.
Yeah.
That was very disturbing. Yeah,
yeah.
This movie. I didn't really talk about this because we didn't have a lot of time right after.
Yeah.
I really judge like a lot of modern horror like by how many times does like the back of my neck do I feel like my skin almost crawling, or I can feel like a physical sensation of
negative
fear?
ASMR.
Yeah, that's actually a negative, or that's you said negative. That's what I said.
Sorry.
That's actually a rare thing to happen.
Yeah.
Actually, even horror movies that I like, I don't necessarily always get that feeling. But I had moments in this movie of like. Genuine, like physically, I could feel the back of my neck kind of like, oh, what's going to happen here? Like, and that happens, like I said, a lot rarer than you would think. So the fact that it got me to feel that way, I'm like, okay, there's something special in this that is
going
strong.
back to the technical aspects, just wanted to mention there's that part where she's standing on the at the door, and it's dark, but you can like see her eyes. The whites of her eyes is just literally. I don't even know how they even did that. Like just as a filmmaking aspect, I don't even know.
Yeah.
So this is proof that you can literally go back to the whole like Tales from the Crypt, Monkey's Paw kind of thing, and still do a good version of it that is just the most straightforward, simple thing. Because I feel like too many horror movies now have gotten too complicated about themselves. And they're just not really like, it's just a lot of smoke and no fire, and this is just fire the whole time to me, I think. But
right.
So yeah.
Andy Richter is in this movie also, by the way, as Carter Hopper, Harper, the music store boss, and Sarah's father. Sarah is this other character, who's Baron Nikki's.
I guess we didn't really
friend.
exactly say what this is about, did we? I mean,
No,
definitively,
so
like,
I'll just read what Wikipedia here says. The film follows Bear, played by Michael Johnston, who I think gives a very tricky performance. He's not going to get as much plaudits as Indy Navarrete, who was terrific.
I compared it to the like kind of Misery, like James Caan, Kathy Bates kind of thing. You know?
So it follows Bear, a music store employee who buys a supernatural toy and wishes for his childhood friend Nikki to fall in love with him, resulting in horrifying consequences. So he basically breaks this toy and gives the wish, and this girl that he wasn't sure if she liked him or not, all of a sudden is all in love with him. And we get like one little minor montage of life being great, and then pretty quickly it's like,
well, even before that, things are weird too. And
well, that initial encounter right after that for sure is.
Yeah.
But then it's like she starts lying about things in her life that aren't quite true. She starts, obviously stalking him, being so clingy and possessive about his time, and literally that one scene where he leaves for work and she just stands there. I was like, she's just going to stand here like the whole freaking day, I'm sure, and that's what happened. I think obviously anyone, male or female, who's like had a crush or pine for somebody would be like, if only I could magically wish for them to like me. And this very quickly, I think this actually could become a really good instructive like piece of art about this, that kind of not only is a be careful what you wish for, like a monkey's paw situation, like you were saying, just in general is like, what is consent, what is love, like what is that exchange between people, that I think is like the narrative itself is having a conversation about that.
Yeah, and this is smart enough to remember that obviously this is going to become a thing with AI, but that this is a reminder of like the person is in there screaming, like inside.
And he's told, I don't think there's much of a spoiler, kind of halfway through, like, the only way to break it is if you were to die. Mm-hmm. And so that immediately like gets us and him thinking about, okay, what's going to be my breaking point where that might have to happen, because this is just an untenable situation,
The cat hangs around a lot longer than I expected. You keep thinking we're done with the cat, and then I'm like, dang.
Did you, I think I know the answer to this, and I'd probably agree with what you're going to say. Did you feel offended by like the cat?
Not really. I mean, that's so common in movies anyway. It doesn't even matter anymore. I mean, if it was a dog, it would be different. I think people would be reacting to that differently, sadly. Cats, this sounds randomly like I go into a whole thing about this, and this people almost roll their eyes, but it's true. Cats have witnessed far more of a culture of violence in depiction than dogs ever have. And if you don't agree with that, then start actually thinking about it, because it's just one of those things. It's just the way it is. I don't know.
The cat's in the bag and the bag's in the river is a whole phrase.
Yeah.
I mean,
dogs, you don't really get that with. I think that there's something about, I think also cats are smarter. So there's kind of an inherent otherness to the fact that they'd be tricked into being killed or something. I don't know. Then dogs are just stupid. You can make them do anything. We're not dog people here, just in case you couldn't tell. But whatever. I mean, I'm used to that.
I wasn't either. But
whatever. I think Navarrete, of all of these performances, it's funny to me that so many people talked about Toni Collette for Hereditary, and I thought she was good in that. I mean, she was fine, but this just like blows that out. Like, this is like totally other. I mean, for something that's pretty simple. I mean, I don't really think I've seen a relative unknown do things like this definitively already at the beginning of their career. To where the fact that I'm even saying I think this maybe should be nominated for an Academy Award, I'm like, I actually really kind of mean that. Where it's like, other horror people are just like, we need that. It's like, I don't know. That all those other ones I wasn't very convinced by, but this one I'm like, okay, this is actually something.
Obviously, last year with Weapons, we had, what's her name?
Amy Madigan.
Amy Madigan
she won for that,
right,
which is hilarious. That's more about her as an actress than it is as that performance.
I think,
But,
I agree you kind of comparing this to weapons, and I say as somebody who's not a weapons hater, but more of a weapons skeptic, I guess. That movie did have this, like, big grand pop quality that, like, obviously this movie, because of how big it is not going to have or imprint.
Right, well, in this movie's like the best Richard Bachman book or version of like Pet Sematary that Stephen King would write.
I didn't think about Stephen King, but definitely it feels like
it's very like immediate cutting and no frills, nauseating kind of
it was a monkey
version. Yeah, I mean
it
reminded me a lot of the monkey.
Yeah,
I mean it's very similar.
Not as funny, but yeah.
No, and I think this is better, but that's really close to being as good as this too because I thought that was really good, but. And that's one of the better horror comedies ever made, I think.
I will say the only minor criticism I throw this movie of something I really overall liked. There's only so many endings that this movie could have, and I feel like as you're getting towards the end, you're like, okay, I pretty much could. I think I know a version of what's going to happen.
Well, the thing that is most interesting is how do they piece all this together?
Yeah,
because it's like, how do you work it out where that woman isn't implicated?
One of the more violent deaths I've seen in a movie is in this.
You know what's funny is I saw that coming.
I knew it was going to happen because of the way the framing is. This movie also like has great framing and this is a classic horror movie trick, but like that adds tension. But I mean, so I knew it was going to happen, but just the way it looked and what it was still like wow.
There's so many parts in this movie though where her face is out of frame or the blocking is like at the bottom. Or like her chest or her legs or it's stuff that's like not her face. Yeah. And you're almost glad because whenever you actually see her face in those sections of the movie, you're like, I don't want to see that anymore. Right. So, really well done.
It's great. Let's check it out. Anyways,
real quickly, I guess before we move to our features here. Just to mention that it's been announced literally, I think it was like last week, that The Devils is finally getting a director's cut that just premiered at Cannes about 2 days ago.
This has been one of the most highly anticipated physical media releases, and because that's mostly how I've seen it framed as like a physical media release in a Blu-ray 4K. But as you said, it's going to get a re-release too
in like October.
You're a big fan of that movie,
before, but yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think. Was there an anniversary in particular? It's the 55th.
Yeah, it's the 55th.
Yeah. So excited for that.
Drive 55.
Yeah, excited for that.
Yeah, because we watched this on the VHS.
Because for a while that was the
then they put out there was like a South Korean DVD version that had a little bit more stuff in it. I think that was like the stuff that sometimes goes on the Criterion channel here and there.
Yeah. So it's going to be a week-long engagement starting October 16th, 2026.
Yeah, so that'll be right when soccer season's over and I can celebrate with the Devils.
Have you heard about this whole new Clockwork label?
I basically figured out one of that, which basically has a Clockwork Orange logo. Font.
Yeah, it's like a new specialty label, basically, that Warner Brothers is working with. That Tiamo, which is the next Sean Baker movie, is I think going to be the first movie put out through that label. I think for whatever reason I thought Digger was also going to be, but I don't think so. But apparently it's his love letter to the Italian sex comedies of the 60s and 70s.
Okay.
This will be his first movie since Anora.
He's all into all that sex stuff, ain't he? Huh?
His next movie is going to be about sex workers. Can you imagine? Anyways, Devils.
Yeah, so like just to mention that, I remember when we watched that, we were both very affected by that. I mean, that's the type of movie I think is pretty funny that's the type of movie that you think, oh, there's more stuff. I'm like, I thought that was enough.
Yeah, right.
Even what it was so extreme. I can't imagine what more of it would be. So.
Under the legacy section, and we talked about this way back when, despite the controversy surrounding the film and lack of an official release by Warner Brothers, one of the nuns makes a cameo appearance in Space Jam.
Yeah, because I talked to the kids about this a little bit, and I wore my Devil's hat to school, just for the fun of it, and I was like, this is a $35 hat, and they were like, what? I mean...
and they're like, you're fired?
Yeah, no, not to the... No. We don't do that. But I was telling the kids about it a little bit, and I showed them one of the trailers, and one of the classes was like, I don't like this. I mean, nothing explicit was exactly shown, obviously.
Was exactly shown.
Well, I mean, there's some of the stuff in there that's, it's like what you could put in a trailer in 1971 obviously is not going to be that bad. So, but and I was telling them about how, and I brought up the fact about Space Jam. I said, y'all remember how, like, there's that whole scene where, like, it has all the characters in it? They're like, yes, I looked up a picture of that, and they were like, oh, okay. Like, and kind of were, they didn't recognize it, obviously, at the time, but... I
forgot, Ken Russell did the Tommy, that Who
He's
movie.
made a lot of stuff. He did Altered States, and Altered States and The Devils are probably his two biggest things, I'd guess, and then Women in Love, I think, won some Oscars, so that's kind of a movie.
The Devils,
though. So anyway, we've talked about that on here before, so, and we'll probably do it eventually. But
speaking of hell, here's the trailer. War is hell, Levi. I don't know. You seem to be confused.
No, I'm not confused. I just,
Here's the trailer for 1998's Saving Private Ryan. One of the oddest trailers I've seen in some time.
Yeah, it's pretty not good. So,
but luckily the movie is very good.
Yeah.
So Saving Private Ryan is a 19
the hell out of there.
I'm gonna explain that maybe later.
Yeah, later.
It's a 1998 American epic war film. Sometimes it's, I don't know, sometimes when they say the always these first sentences,
epic.
It's like an epic war film. I mean, that's literally what it is.
Yeah.
But it just,
all war
goofy.
films are kind of inherently epic. Most of them, anyway.
Directed by Steven Spielberg, and one of the great names of all time, written by Robert Rodat.
Robert wrote that.
Robert Rodat movie. Like, set in 1944 in Normandy, France during World War II.
What's any of that?
It follows a group of soldiers led by Captain John Miller, Tom Hanks, on a mission to locate Private James Francis Ryan, Matt Damon, and bring him back home safely after his three brothers have been killed in action. Also, Ed Burns, Tom Sizemore, Jeremy Davies. As this said, it's not credited because obviously it's an original screenplay, but it's inspired by the Ambrose books.
Yeah, Stephen Ambrose.
As well as the Sullivan brothers, who are a real family of five brothers that has a similar situation to this as far as some of them being killed. And the Nyland brothers is another example. And then in the movie, there's also there was a circumstance similar to this during the Civil War.
Right.
That was...
it was referenced in the movie, yeah.
So this movie came out in July of 1998. Now, Levi, you were literally a month away from being a person.
Yep.
So you are not quite with us just yet. Very, very close. I would have been 5 years old. I did not see this movie, by the way, until I would at some point when I was a teenager. I was
Yeah.
probably like 12 or 13 years old. I think I first saw it on TNT. They know drama. At least they did. They know the drama. And
R.I.P. to Ted Turner.
but this was one of. I don't think this is hyperbolic. One of those like iconic '90s movies that, as a kid, you're like, oh, adults. Titanic was kind of a version of this too, where it's like adults watch. This is the big thing that adults are into.
This is the Newsweek cover of, The Sopranos, or the Newsweek cover that had, for Signs that had Shyamalan on it,
the
next Spielberg, which is.
How's that
half
working out?
true? I don't know. It's in a way, but anyway,
But I remember seeing this poster in the old movie gallery. It used to be here in Hudson.
Yeah.
Like they put posters up in the video rental places, and I remember just seeing like the wall of the VHSs where everyone went to pay homage.
Was this a double VHS?
I think it. Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. Cause
you know what? I just now remember. The first time I would have seen this, since you just said that, I saw the double VHS of this that my Aunt Sarah got for me at the Patrick Beaver Library in Hickory.
Oh.
I remember when they had VHSs. Now I'm all of a sudden remember that. That's how I first would have watched it. And I think she was like, she knew it was rated R, but she's like, well, it's about World War II.
She had a very interesting sense of censorship that was very strange. I can't really describe.
She was just like, you need to know about this stuff, and so whatever. So just like got it for me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't even know where to start with this movie, because it's like this movie.
War exists.
It's just like
as does Tom Hanks.
It's like there are obviously movies better than this that came out this year. We'll be talking about one in a little bit.
Yeah.
There are better Spielberg movies than this. But this is just like, as far as the influence and impact of some of his movies, and this is saying a lot for who he is. This just immediately came down and just felt like this instant classic that is going to be forever imprinted on American cinema, and also how World War II is contextualized and remembered for generations of people. As far as, again, it came out in the summer of 1998. Had a budget of somewhere between $65-70 million. This was also, I think, one of the movies that basically was one of the launching pads for DreamWorks. Yeah. So that it was like there was a lot riding on this movie to launch DreamWorks to be a success that it was for a while. It grossed $482 million, so it was a big hit. This won Spielberg, I believe, his second Best Director award. It did not win Best Picture,
right?
But he won Best Director that year. And I've went back in a few times and watched the speech, and he says something very interesting right when he walks up to the stage and gets it, and he says something along the lines of, "Is it bad that I really wanted this one this year?" Basically saying that, I poured a lot into this movie. Obviously, and I want to get into this later.
Did he win Best Director for Schindler's List?
Yeah,
okay.
Also that. Yeah. So this was his second at that point, obviously, this movie has a huge connection with his dad was a World War II veteran, as were a lot of boomers looking at their dads were World War II veterans, which obviously Spielberg's a part of that. Yeah. Like if somebody on the street, Levi, is like, "Yo, Saving Private Ryan, thoughts?" ? Because there's so many things to even start to unpack with this movie. Like, what does it even immediately bring out of you?
I think that for our generation, me and you, not the greatest generation, but probably the last. No, but
there's already several more.
Yeah, that's all right. I'm joking anyway. I don't get into all that crap anyway. But our generation, yours and mine, and kind of the in between, obviously, is. I mean, this is one of those movies you watch a million times when you're 13. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It's just
Well, especially when you're like, oh, World War II, that was cool.
Yeah, this is in that prime age. Mm-hmm. And I mean, this was the prime movie for that. In its own way, as far as before you're seeing, you're going even further in depth to European versions of World War II movies like Come and See or something, which we still haven't seen, obviously. Yeah. But I mean, I hate to start here because it's where everybody does, and there's a whole rest of the movie after this.
The D-Day sequence.
But the D-Day sequence, which I looked at, said it cost $12 million just to shoot that. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think it can be put into words what a massive influence that has been on the modern vision of war, modern visions of the way to depict war,
in particular,
cinema in
and not
general.
just cinema, but for our generation and the ones younger and maybe slightly older, video games.
Yes,
like the Medal of Honor games,
Call
of Duty. But I remember specifically there was like a Medal of Honor game. I don't remember which one it would have been, where you're like storming the beaches of Normandy, and it's like directly pulling from
Call
this.
of Duty 2 was that too in its own way.
Yeah,
a
so
very
like
big
for
version of
video
that.
games, like, and I think that's how probably a lot of our generation took in more of World War II. Honestly, more through video games as much as movies. But yeah, that sequence is so influential.
Right. And I mean, so those things just become so iconic. It's kind of hard to even discuss. I mean, just the and I think in its own way, it's I was going to say Tarantino. What? Spielberg's, it's in its own way, it's kind of Spielberg kind of sneering at us in its own way, too, because, like, we're so used to seeing, a Spielberg movie. Not that he hadn't depicted violence in movies before. I mean, obviously he'd done Schindler's List. But when you're going into a movie like Saving Private Ryan, you're kind of expecting, something triumphant, about war. And the movie is triumphant in a downshift way, I think, kind of
The movie's it's intense about honor and dignity.
Yeah, right.
And the triumph within that.
Yeah,
I would say, yeah.
But the opening of the movie, you start this way, and it's just, you think, okay, we're going to go into war. There'll probably be a cool little action sequence. And I mean, I think it's probably good to talk about the psychology of watching this sequence, because, I mean, naturally, we're all, most people, I'd say, are thrilled by violence in movies. And we could talk about that forever, and we've talked about it before, but that I think it's interesting that, I enjoy watching this sequence for a lot of reasons. One that I don't think anybody expected was to be so appalled by the visuals of what we're actually witnessing. Is that, because, people have talked about war violence in movies forever. I think somebody who had the most interesting things to say about it randomly was Samuel Fuller, who doesn't, and I love Samuel Fuller, but he doesn't miss a chance to remind you that he's a veteran, in the sense of that he witnessed, so many awful things happen. That I remember he once said that, in war, it's not this whole kind of, a guy gets shot and he falls over. It's like he went into discussing the, what it actually is like to either kill or to witness somebody be killed. And this was honestly, probably, I can't think of a movie other than this that has more influenced the way that that's depicted in a popular, blockbuster movie context.
Right.
Which has been wildly uncontroversial. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like, you don't have people just being like, oh my god, this is just too much. Everybody talks about this sequence in the same way.
Uh-huh.
Which is really kind of a miracle for a movie. I can't think of another thing that's that big that people all discuss this sequence the same way, and that sounds boring maybe to talk about like that, but that's obviously a testament to its power. That you're kind of thrown into this and you don't really know who all these people are, and you basically learn as you go up the beach, okay, this is the group of people I'm going to be following the movie with, because so many people are being shot down and killed and are in various stages of either literal or emotional torment. So, it's something that, and I think the movie's great after that, but that is one minor, I don't even want to say drawback of the movie, but it's hard to sustain that level of, like, intensity over the course of this movie that it's like, you feel like you already watched a movie when you get 20 minutes through it. It's so high stakes.
I think for me, I think anytime this conversation comes up with like, the D-Day sequence is great, and not many people don't like the rest of the movie.
Sure.
It's just like,
and I'm not saying that either.
There's more.
Yeah.
To me, it reminds me a lot of the conversation around Up, As far as
Yeah.
like, oh, that was that opening sequence, but you know, it's like, well, there's a whole movie after that, obviously, and I think in both cases,
People talk similarly about Full Metal Jacket in a certain way too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that's like even longer.
That's
but I know what you
that's a little
mean,
bit of a
yeah.
different conversation,
But,
but
yeah.
right.
But for me, like how that sequence is immediately followed up by all the letters that have to
Yeah.
go out of obviously all the soldiers who were killed, and then that leads us to the Ryan family, and in particular like the mission that our main characters are going to be set on to
and
find.
and the stepdad, or I mean the father-in-law in Fargo and all that.
I was going to say the dad who stepped up.
No,
I was like, what?
you know what I'm talking about, right? The guy
yeah.
that's in Fargo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always forget about him.
Yeah.
I know that he's in both of those, but
Right.
anyways,
A 90s icon.
but like I
More
feel
like an icon who was in his 90s. Dang. old
but
man.
there's like these skirmishes the rest of
Right.
the movie, and then there's the big like kind
At
of
the end,
other
yeah.
battle that's at the end of the movie, and
which is even arguably just as well done in a quieter way.
yeah,
But-
it's a really amazing
Yeah.
sequence, unsurprisingly, because we're talking about the greatest filmmaker of all time, so
Yeah.
not that shouldn't be that surprising.
I
I think by then
yeah.
too, like we now have these relationships
Yeah,
with these people
right, yeah.
versus. Obviously they're American soldiers, so we want them to survive, but we know that it's going to be a bloodbath on, Omaha Beach.
Right.
And really the only person we have a huge association with is Tom Hanks, you
Right.
know, and that opening sequence.
Yeah, I mean, I think I could compare the sequence really to the movie Titanic in its own ways, that people kind of knew about that before the movie Titanic.
Yeah.
But the movie Titanic is the way we now view D-Day. I mean,
Yeah,
sorry,
right.
excuse me.
Yeah.
The movie Titanic is the way we now view D-Day.
Yeah.
The movie Titanic is how we now view the Titanic sinking, right?
Same thing with this.
Same thing with it. It's literally, because there were movies that had depicted
Both have
D-Day
framing
before.
devices too.
Right, and there were movies that depicted D-Day before. I mean, you had, The Longest Day, Overlord.
Mm-hmm.
There were other versions of that, obviously. Same thing with Titanic. You had Night to Remember. But, yeah, I mean, and then, of course, Pearl Harbor similarly had From Here to Eternity, which is a way better movie than Pearl Harbor, and Tora Tora Tora. But, yeah, I mean, I think all of these are versions of, like, a modern visualization of, or, realization of that event.
And also doing it in a way that's like, it feels modern because of the handheld photography,
Right.
because of, and this was where, I don't know how many video games did post-traumatic stress or shell shock, like, based on
Yes,
very
yeah.
directly this depiction, basically.
We were talking
of
about it when we were watching it, but that, like, Chungking Express effect of however they do that with the camera, where it's, like, running at a weird speed, it's, like, jittery or whatever,
Yeah.
and the silence, and, I mean, so, yeah, but I'm glad you mentioned that, because, I really actually also love the whole, I know we keep using the word sequence, but, the sequence right after that, where they're having the letters, they bring them to the different people, they go say, okay, we need to tell the mother. I love the scene, just visually, the way it looks, of where they live, of the farm, and
Yeah,
them
in
going out
Iowa.
to tell her. I mean, it just reminds me of that time period when I was growing up. I mean, which is funny because that's like in the 40s, like in the middle
Right.
of nowhere.
Yeah.
But like the way it's lit and everything about it reminds me of, like, where places I grew up.
Right.
Similar things that I could say about the Thin Red Line also, but and I think what really makes the movie work, because the whole central question then about the movie is, okay, we can look at war in this really, like, macro, almost like a tabletop RPG game about you have this many, or like a game of
Which
Risk.
I've not seen
know.
it yet, but this new Dwight Eisenhower movie
Right.
that's coming out with Brendan Fraser feels like exactly what
see them again.
it feels like what you're saying
Right.
is like this very removed, like,
Yeah.
and I know it's going to try to, it's about the people and all that, but like all the man to a man,
Right.
but like it's going to feel like when's the date, when's the time we're going to do the
And
invasion.
how do you
It's all
even
this
do a
logistical
D-Day
stuff.
a D-Day sequence after this? What do you even do?
Yeah,
It's
I
just
mean,
like-
I genuinely think, like, there's new ways, new takes to do
Right.
things. There's certain things that's like you're not going to beat that.
Right, no.
You should just
And
have
they probably know
you
that.
should have a title card that says, "Watch
Refer
Saving
to
Private Ryan."
insert
Yeah.
that scene here. Yeah.
Because you're not gonna get any more iconic than
Right.
this. Yeah.
But yeah. anyway, that's all just to say that this movie starts with kind of a macro view, and then very quickly over the course of the movie with the mission of going to save this one son who's the only surviving son of that family after all the deaths that have happened. I think only one of them actually died at Normandy. The other two were like...
They were like deaths like right around that time.
Right. And then the whole question of the movie becomes, what is a human life and what is war actually for? Now, war, what is it good for?
Yeah.
What is the effect that war has on the individual, and what does one life mean to all these others? And other movies have done that, and other movies I think have even maybe done it better. But I think that this does it the most emotionally effective of a movie that I've seen. I mean, I think a lot about the Giovanni Ribisi scene of him talking about his mother coming home and him acting like he's asleep, and you juxtapose that with when he's dying and he's calling out for his mother. Is just like, I can't think of a more heart-wrenching version of such a thing than that.
Or even the Sizemore character who gets to say the titular line,
right.
Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah. Maybe you should shut up.
Where he's like just getting, it's just a very silent scene where he's getting dirt from all the areas. That's such a great way to very quickly administer not only the places that this unit has been, but also why they've lost all these people over the course of their time together, and this is what you hear about all soldiers anyways, if they fight after a certain point, that you go in with the people you think are your best buddies and then they slowly just die through combat, and so you are going to have a calloused view of what one life is worth because of you've just seen.
And they had the
all these people died.
They had the whole thing, the story about the Vecchio kid, and they're like, it's V for Vecchio, V for victory.
Yeah.
But that and that kind of also says and you also think about that, the scene where the French citizens are trying to give the girl over,
which is such a tense scene. It's raining. There's a sniper in the town. They're they're like, well, we want to help this girl and this family out, but this is just endangering our unit to be engaged in this at this time.
And so there's a lot about individual life in this movie, which it's even hard to get that in a museum. You know what I mean?
Right.
You go to the Holocaust Museum, which is, one of the most well done museums in the country, maybe in the world, and I've been in it a lot. And it's hard to get that level of the individual. I mean, you see that in a lot of places in that museum, but there's so much of it.
Right.
Here, I mean, that's why cinema is such a powerful way to, convey that emotionality, is that you can split it up and really spend time on it. And so, the movie, the movie's so well constructed that, obviously the opening is, the most iconic thing about the movie, but then it also is that's what the rest of the movie's about too, is about going into the micro rather than the macro, obviously, and that's what
I feel like Spielberg, I would imagine for him, it was probably already in the script, but the Upham character is the nerdy, smart, but kind of green guy who gets injected into the unit to help them be basically their translator. I think that's kind of a Spielberg avatar, and also an audience avatar as well, because we feel like we're just getting thrown into this and we're not prepared for everything that's going to happen in the same way that all these other ones are. I want to talk a little bit about Tom Hanks in this movie, because I feel like the 90s were the great era of the two Toms, Tom Hanks, Tom Cruise, different ways, different facets. This is, I think, one of the most thankless Hank roles that is still pretty well known.
Yeah.
His name, he's the main face on the poster. He's above the title. This was the height of his stardom.
Yeah.
And yet, we don't think, I think it's because it's a little bit of an atypical Hanks, because it's recognizably him. He looks like him, he sounds like himself, but it doesn't have the warmth naturally that a lot of his other characters and performances
he's
does.
very removed the whole movie, and kind of sardonic in a very quiet way. He's nice to people, but he's kind of callous and kind of above everything.
But also dealing with post-traumatic stress, and he does. There's no name for that yet. In that way, it would just be called shell shock. But he's dealing with that's kind of a motif that is the movie plays with throughout, as he's clearly dealing with that.
Yeah.
And you know, I think one of my very favorite scenes, I guess we're biased because we're school teachers, is there's this talk the whole time about what is he actually. He won't tell us what he did what he was part of back home, and then as a way to diffuse the tension that happens like after the Ribisi characters dies, that they're at each other's throats about what they're going to do about the German the German they have as a POW or whatever. They're going to let him go or whatever.
Maybe boot what it is.
Yeah. That he reveals to them all that he was a school teacher back home and he's from Pennsylvania. I think so. Is that what he says? He's from Pennsylvania? I think so.
Yes.
A Miller from Pennsylvania who's a school teacher. I know one of those. And a lot of, to me, the most memorable things in the movie, despite all these massive action set pieces, are those scenes of revelation, or like those, what you were saying about what Ribisi said earlier in the movie. But like, to me, the most non-combat memorable moment to me is seen in the movie is the scene between Hanks and Damon, who I think this movie also really benefited long-term from, frankly, being a little bit lucky that Matt Damon has become what he's become as a star, because that is a very important role, because we have to look at that person and go, okay, this was a person who was worthy of like what all this was, like this whole mission that cost the lives of these people. And really there's two moments that he has to get right or sell. The one is where when they come and break the news to him, and obviously he's emotional, but he's like, well, I can't abandon my guys that I'm with.
Right.
Because somebody like the Edward Burns character, who I would say is like probably the second most important character of our squad up to that point, other than Tom Hanks, obviously is number one. That he's like he's kind of representing the like stereotypical American GI in a lot of ways, Ed Burns in this, and that he's like initially obviously angry about like, what are you telling me you can't go with us, but very quickly understands and gets, he's given as much to his unit as we would give for ours.
Yeah.
And obviously that quick respect that has to happen before we have that final set piece or sequence. So Damon has to sell that.
Yeah.
And then Damon, ultimately the most crucial scene of the movie is where he talks, other than the action stuff, is him telling the story about the last time that he and his brothers were all together, and the whole, basically the comedy of all that or whatever. And that's like, again, I can't remember when did other big Matt Damon movie way back when, in the Good Will Hunting come out in 1997. So like he was more of a known quality. He was an Academy Award winner by the time this movie came out, actually, already. But that, to me, as far as like Matt Damon the actor, was already like, okay, this guy's a movie star.
Yeah.
Because he can sell this moment, this scene, and make us care, okay, this guy actually was worthy of everything that had to happen to get him, to that point. And then the beauty or the magic of Hanks he gives a little hint about what his story would be, but he doesn't tell us that story. All that, by the way, intercut with the Edith Piaf song, and then like, that to me, that whole sequence is probably my favorite stuff in the movie, because it's the build up to the battle.
Right.
It's like the battle itself, as amazing as it is, none of that matters if we don't care about the people themselves in the battle. So, I think obviously we all know by that point, Spielberg can do any action set piece he wants to. This is like post Jurassic Park, obviously. So like all that stuff is, we know that he's the like, at this point it would have been him and James Cameron were like the height of the action set piece at this moment. But him being able to sell all those moments between that, I think it's around. I would say, I mean, the easy thing to say was like Schindler's List. that was the ultimate culmination of Spielberg as not just being the big blockbuster filmmaker, that he can make a movie that can win like best picture,
Right.
and is of a quote unquote more serious note than like what he had been accused of like in the 70s and 80s. Like, oh, you can make these really good popcorn movies, but like when are you going to make a movie that's like quote unquote of more value? And I say that with a little bit of eye roll because but it was these two movies that ultimately I would say he kind of canonically, amongst critics and amongst like cinephiles, he kind of reached another level that he's basically, I'd say, existed at ever since. And so in a weird way, going back to what I was saying earlier, he's made better movies.
Yeah.
But this is actually, I'd say, one of the most crucial accomplishments of his career. That also, one of the things I was wanting to talk about was just Spielberg as a World War II canonical filmmaker. Not of the era exactly, obviously, but like from the very beginning of his career. The Indianapolis speech in Jaws. Obviously, 1941 as a whole movie is a World War II movie. But even also like the World War II pilots who come off the ship, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah. Indiana Jones.
Obviously the Nazis.
1941.
Well, I mentioned that a second ago. Obviously with Raiders of the Lost Ark, but then also Last Crusade.
Empire of the Sun
adaptation, and then obviously this and Schindler's List. What do you think of? To what extent do you think of Spielberg as like a baby boomer who is? I don't mean regurgitate. I guess just like was a kid who literally grew up watching combat on television, watching all of them. And I want us to talk about this too, like the history of World War II movies in general. And this is almost not exactly an end, but like a culmination, I guess, of like decades and decades of
because
World War II storytelling.
Right, now they're being made in these very like this one part of the war, and it's that like Darkest Hour, Dunkirk. Well, that's a step up, but like these kind of more like
I want to talk about Dunkirk's
the
relationship
aftermath
to this
and
later,
like all those kinds of movies that are like they're about World War II, but they're kind of those like the grandmas and the biddies go out to see them, kind of like whatever, like this.
Well, that would have been a generation that was raised on. There were so many of those too, like they're used to that as a little genre of movie.
Well, it's interesting though that you mentioned Spielberg in this way because I wouldn't normally think of him that way, even though you're right. I almost weirdly think of George Lucas more as a World War II filmmaker in the sense that he's making these kind of pastiches or like references.
I was thinking of him too, yeah.
That through Star Wars, I almost see him as more of that than Spielberg, which is weird because he's never made a movie about World War II. Obviously, Lucas in a like direct way, but yeah, I mean, I think that the history of the World War II movie is so complicated because they were making movies.
You've seen some more than I have as far as some of the older stuff.
I guess.
Like in the 50s and 60s and even 70s.
I mean, well, it's funny because they were making World War II movies when the war was going on. Like, it's a weird kind of like, that would be really weird, wouldn't it? To live in that time and to watch movies about a war that wasn't even over yet. Like
imagine if say 3 months from now there was an Iran war movie going
on.
I
don't know. There's like there was higher stakes with World War II about like, okay, literally, can we win this? What can we do?
That was also at the height of the studio like era. How many movies they could produce so quickly, and the propaganda machine that obviously fed into that too.
Because like I'm not getting into the politics of the Iran war, but we could literally occupy the country today if we wanted to. I mean, This was a lot more complicated about, like, I mean, this is the war that made such a thing possible, basically, where if we just commit however much we want to whatever. But, like, there was an uncertainty to the ending of World War II to where it was weird to make movies then, But that, I mean, they were literally starting to even make movies after World War II that were about World War II in the sense of, I mean, even, I still haven't seen it, but The Best Years of Our Lives, like, was already being made. That's more about the end of the war than it is the war itself. But, I mean, they were making movies. They made movies forever. And then the 70s and the 80s were a little bit more about, like, Vietnam, obviously, and Korea even, and then you kind of had the resurgence of the World War II movie with this. I mean, and there were versions of them that have been made, forever throughout all that time. But yeah,
Do you think? I mean, this is an old talking point that the reason not only America but specifically like Hollywood romanticized World War II is because it was the last quote good versus evil war.
Yes,
That's
because it's very uncomplicated as far as what it is.
There's complications within that.
Yeah,
but in the aggregate, it is. I'll make a controversial statement for some people. It was not complicated.
No, it wasn't.
Even though there are complications within the not complicatedness overall. If that makes any sense.
Well, I mean, even with the bad things about America, it was committed to democracy, whereas the other and respect of human life in a base level that the enemy, the opposing force was definitively against.
I think I did actually Oppenheimer didn't immediately come up in my head when I was thinking about these conversations. I think that's like one that engages in the complications, I think, in a pretty fair and honest way, although some people disagree with that.
That talks a lot more about, the macro, the macro in terms of the scale and the death, but then in the macro about, the people thinking about what that means.
Yeah.
That movie is a World War II movie, but to me that's a lot more about, it's more of a movie about science.
Well, also politics
and human potential of destruction, obviously, where it is about, and I mean every war movie's about that, and obviously, but the Civil War kind of had, as far as movies about that, had a resurgence during the 90s too, with the Ken Burns.
Also Gettysburg.
And Gettysburg, so that had its own and even
you mentioned Vietnam.
Later on, Ride with the Devil.
Think
and
one thing I was thinking about in prep for this movie was I was starting to think like what were some of the just general war movies that had come out like a decade plus before this, and the first thing I thought of was Oliver Stone and Platoon and like a lot of things about Vietnam.
What was that movie called that? Oh Lord, that De Palma made, Casualties of War, I think.
Yeah.
That had Sean Penn and Marty McFly. What's his name?
Michael J. Fox.
Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean there were all kinds of Vietnam movies in the 80s and 70s.
So, and this is where I want to get to. Do you think like that, like, obviously it was in the late 80s, early 90s where we were starting to be a little bit more comfortable with saying, Vietnam was, like, not good.
Right.
Not, it was a bad thing, cinematically. While also engaging with what you were saying about, like, the complicatedness of the war film is, like, there's been a lot of talk about, is every film inherently a quote-unquote pro-war film, which I think that we're getting a little bit navel-gazing when we get into this territory. But, like, is every film a pro-war film because war is an inherently exciting visual phenomenon or experience that a movie's depiction of it is inherently endorsing it?
No, I don't believe that, because I think if you can push it in a way that
makes it horrifying to watch,
that is non-mainstream, like something, I haven't seen it, but like something like Come and See, because even a movie like Warfare struggles to be exactly anti-war, and I mean that's not. I mean, Ray Mendoza's been on the record of saying, "I'm not saying whether this is anti-war or not. I'm just saying this is an experience."
Kubrick's
I had.
Similar to that. Kubrick said the same thing about Full Metal Jacket, where he was.
I find
he said
that more interesting. That's not anti-war.
He sees it more as a reflection of the phenomenon of war than I think he's being a little cute by saying that, because I think the movie's fairly anti-war.
It is, yeah.
But also, I think people could be offended. I'm not, but by the irony of using the bird as the word in the middle of, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's got this quirkiness to it here and there. But you can't watch the first half of that movie and say, "Oh yeah, that's an endorsement of the military." That's ridiculous.
No, that's insane.
And obviously, Paths of Glory is even more anti-war. 30 years before with World War I.
I do want to go on a quick sidebar here and talk about an interesting conversation that is almost not over. Like, I keep having the same conversation.
Okay.
My favorite kid this year, who I've known for 2 years, he's one of my soccer players, who I'm pretty close with and have known for a long time now. and he brought up, I don't remember how this came up, but we were talking about it kind of in a big class setting, and then me and him kind of talked about it later, about the Vincent D'Onofrio suicide scene in Full Metal Jacket.
Okay.
He had seen Full Metal Jacket, basically. And we were kind of laughing about it because of, just the nature of the scene, and it's not funny, but then that kind of makes it fun. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of, I'd have to replicate the whole conversation; it'd be complicated. But like that, we were talking. He was like doing his impression of D'Onofrio in that scene of how he talks, like Full Metal Jacket, like talking about loading the gun and everything.
He gets the title,
and right. And I was talking about how comedic it is that Arlie Ermy comes in his like skivvies, but then he's got the hat on, and like
that's Kubrick clearly.
Yeah, now that's funny.
This is absurd,
and we were talking about how like he should be like talking him down, but he just immediately goes into the same.
I think he has
you know?
such contempt for him as
Right.
a person. It's like, there's no way he would actually do it anyway.
Right.
So, but of course he's.
But then, and I was talking about how I thought that was like probably in the top 5 most violent, visceral things I've ever seen in a movie when he kills himself is like so violent.
I remember being shocked when I first saw that. I remember being quite shocked.
I mean, it's if you've seen it, it's just so like, oh wow, very frankly violent. And he was like, oh, that's I mean, this is like a 13-year-old, He's like, I don't really think that's that bad. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, and he was like, we got to show the class to have an opinion. I was like, we're not doing that. Like, I was like, no. But it's funny. I feel like I'm still having that conversation with that child every time it comes up. He's like, I don't know. I think he's kind of kidding, and he knows how bad it is. And he's just like, we all have to watch it to see, like, But anyway, it's like that. I don't see how you could even watch just that scene alone and say that isn't an anti-war movie.
Like, war movies in particular can be people who like think about movies more actively than the regular movie-going public. For cinephiles, like sometimes it's like feels weird to like be a big fan of like, if not exactly, because I think to say a movie's pro-war or anti-war is a little reductive because it's like there's a lot of gray area in the middle there. I think this.
Well, there are movies that are definitely pro.
Yeah, well, there are definitely the pro, and there's definitely the anti. There's a lot that like live in the it's a duty. We don't like to do it, but it has to be done. And I feel like this movie's like,
or the sacrifice of the individual for the whole. Yeah, and I do believe in that. I will not lie and say that I don't believe that there should not be a sacrifice for the good of humanity. I believe that wholly. I mean, I really do.
Yeah.
But, I mean, that's literally what... I mean, I'm not saying we're Jesus, but that's literally what Jesus did for humanity. So, like, I'm not saying sacrifice shouldn't exist. It just makes me uncomfortable to think about. Yeah. But, but that's kind of...
And when is it okay and when is it not okay? Yeah. And that's a tough thing. I think cinephiles are people, frankly, I don't know how to say it, of the left, like... Yeah. Have problems with saying that sometimes or grappling with that or understanding that.
They just want to be totally anti-war, or they don't want to discuss that.
Yeah, and I think like maybe, I don't think when I say suffer, not in a big way, I think this movie just like is not going to age for certain people, and just by virtue of that reality versus we'll get into Thin Red Line a little later. I think it's a little more obviously more on the anti-side,
although his movies are so elliptical, it feels almost like they're not saying anything about anything. They're kind of letting you attach meaning to it, which is a very good in good and bad ways sometimes. Yeah, I think some of his lesser great movies that I've seen suffer from that a little more because they're not being more definitive about themselves. But that movie doesn't do that. But no, I think that as far as the anti-war movie goes, like I don't think this movie's anti-war. No, I think it's pretty mellow as far as what it in the middle. As far as what it's saying is more of like that duty and sacrifice exist, and that.
Even that all wraps up or is part of the because to talk about I think it's time to talk a little bit about the. What do you call it? The device that opens and closes the movie, the frame story, I guess. of this old
Of
man.
the old man who's in House of a Thousand Corpses randomly. The only other thing he's ever been in I've seen.
Yeah, the older guy who's
tell me I've led a good life
with his wife and
family,
kids and grandkids, and
guy tries to take picture, woman shakes head.
And
which I never noticed until I watched it this time.
Like that they're at Normandy and circa late 90s. Doesn't really say exactly when it would have been. Imagine in 98 basically.
Going to find
98
Tom Hanks.
Yeah, well, we don't know that exactly like at the beginning, but it revealed that was the elder Matt Damon who grew up, to be that man. And it's haunting. It's the haunting thing of the movie that you don't even realize was haunting the movie the whole time until the very end. Although we're already throughout the movie questioning what's the worth of a single life by virtue of the narrative, what it's necessitating. But like the last words to Hanks' character to Damon before he dies is to earn this, and that's a heavy thing to lay on somebody, and right before you're about to die, because then it's like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Does that mean I go and I cure cancer? Does that mean I go and like do some great noble act on a regular basis? I'm a firefighter, or I'm a that's just like And that's like clearly been a question that we can tell has haunted this man his entire life.
Yeah.
Whatever that means. And I don't know. Some people, I guess, would say this is a very simplistic way to look at it, but it's like, well, look at all those people who are standing over there.
Yeah.
Of course, he led a good life, that he led a life that mattered. And I think that's just a very powerful statement that ultimately closes the book, closes the chapter in a lot of ways on The Greatest Generation. Because I had an idea that Tom Brokaw's Greatest Generation book came out in the early 2000s at some point. Sure. And then I looked, I was like, no, it was 1998. So this was like, this is something that I've like talked with a lot of people about, like why this movie was so important when it came out. Was a lot of, literally our grandfather, who you were born just after he had passed away,
that same year.
Our dad's dad. 1998 is the year of sending off The Greatest Generation. That's just the way I think about it.
He was in the Navy.
Yeah, during World War II. That this was
I don't think he served much time. He got yellow fever or something.
This was a time where a lot of that generation were, in particular, in their mid to late 70s. Yeah. On average. Mm-hmm. So this was just when more and more of them were starting to die off in larger numbers, of course, by virtue
there are
of
very few left
lung cancer versus or just heart attacks or just natural causes. So I think that's something that will probably be a little lost on future generations watching this movie, is not understanding that.
Well, and then right after this, kind of as an offshoot, obviously, of this whole project is Band of Brothers, which was even more of a definitive nail in the coffin, too, for this sort. Maybe that's a bad term to use.
No, I know what you mean.
Of another version of such a thing in a even bigger way, because it had more time, obviously, with it. And obviously, that show trafficked in a lot of the literal visual imagery of this movie. It was made through DreamWorks, so through Gibson and Spielberg and Hanks. Right. So it was more or less literally like, okay, now let's do this off of that. Based on the Ambrose book very definitively. And that also had a lot of those guys in it. At the very end, kind of being interviewed about this. So and they died, I think, not terribly long after that, probably.
And as Levi was saying, like, we have very, very, very few World War II veterans left. I don't even want to put a guess on when the last ones will die, but it'll probably be in the next 10 years, I would say.
I remember that the last World War
I remember the headlines when that happened.
Was a woman. She died in about somewhere around 2010, 2011, something like that, and she was like over 100. So it'll probably be a female again. Although that gets real complicated, and it's one of those things that nobody likes to talk about. But you got to think about the Hitler Youth, and like some of the, and even like Japanese soldier, like or well, then that gets complicated. We're talking about the World War I veteran from America. Who knows what the actual last World War I veteran to die really was? I mean, you can look that up maybe. But, like, World War II is going to be a lot harder to judge, you know, because you had even more resistances and militias and, you know, those sorts of things.
Actually, there was a British woman who was that one. So it says the last universally verified World War I veteran in the world was Florence Green, British citizen who served as an officer in the Women's Royal Air Force. She died in 2012 at 110.
I knew
last
she was
surviving combat veteran was Claude, I'm not sure how you say it last name, Chowles, who served in the British Royal Navy and later in the Royal Australian Navy. He died in 2011. And he was close. 110.
Yeah.
And then last U.S. was February 2011. That was Frank Buckles, serving the Army. So there are distinctions.
World War II is a ways off. I mean, we still have. Is DC Hefner was a World War II veteran, right? Or no? Or was he like a little after that?
I don't know.
So he was in the Air Force. He was probably after.
Sure.
He was probably.
Maybe Korea,
because
there's obviously those are also super
right
now too.
Yeah,
Korean
and there were less of those
yeah.
too. And Vietnam veterans are getting to the point where they were. Where World War II veterans were when I was a child, where there's still quite a few of them.
I've explained that several times to a lot of teenagers now, and they're like, "Oh, okay, I didn't know that." Okay, like, and it's like that's because that's been a little thing that I've noticed is I've aged, and as the new kids have come about, that same thing that their grandparents are the ones who maybe served in Vietnam or whatever.
One question I want to ask, this is getting off topic, but going back to something I was thinking about this movie that I wanted to bring up before we finish talking about it here is that, what do you think about the whole, and I looked, literally the guy's credited as Steamboat Willie, the German guy. What do you think about Upham killing him at the end of the movie? Do you think that contradicts some of what the movie's trying to say?
Well,
I don't have a definitive opinion on this, by the way.
I don't really either, because Spielberg, according to Spielberg, he wanted that to feel like, if not a betrayal of what Upham's humanism was, or Upham's like morality or ethics, to be a little bit of a like Sum Zero feeling.
Yeah. So he did desire that.
Yeah,
okay.
And that when he said that, like, pretty quickly with test audiences, and it's like you can't cut this from the movie really fundamentally because it's part. I mean, you could, I guess, but that pretty quickly audiences cheered and applauded, and he was kind of like, "Oh no, like that's not exactly what I wanted people to feel." I don't know if I'm going to cheer that guy being killed, but like. You know, he was. I don't know. It was a combat situation. I will say they had given themselves up as prisoners at that point. So if you're gonna really get ticky tack about it, he should have been taken in as a prisoner.
Well, that's what I wanted to say is that like that they're at that point they're not actually in a combat situation.
Yeah.
And so that's why I feel weird about it. That it's basically saying. I don't know. I think I'm not going to like...
So, I should have killed you before.
Right.
I
don't want to spend a lot of time talking about this because like we could take forever on it, but I don't think that it either supports or contradicts exactly, but I would say it is a minor contradiction, I think, of what the movie's supposed to be saying. But also, we can talk all about virtues and ideas about things. That's a human moment to happen. Yeah. So I think it's better... that he did kill him for the narrative because it's more human.
Yeah.
As far as whether it contradicts the movie or not, or the message or not, I don't think that really matters.
There's also like a little bit of there's different ways you can think about it. It's like a hollowness to it because it's like, well, you should have killed the guy earlier who was stabbing, what's that guy's name? I can't remember.
Caparzo or whatever.
No, it was
it's
Adam Goldberg is Mellish, Stanley Fish Mellish. That while he was getting stabbed, and so there's just this hollowness of like, well, it don't matter anymore. You know what I mean? Like, and that, like you said, that's a human
that's not the same
moment.
character.
Like, Oh, no, but he should have killed that guy.
Yeah, sure, right.
And then now he's in a situation where he kills this guy, and
in its own way, that's a reflection of a regret. Yeah, so that
right. That's more so what I meant. But
yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know. That's just something I think about sometimes.
Yeah, it's a complicated question because I think there's people who are Spielberg cynics or doubters or critics who have pointed to that as, that's just another cheap Spielberg moment. That's like it's not actually like human, it's definitely human, but like that is
incompatible with the
and
it's delivering on the violence.
He's actually expressed some if not regret, confusion, I guess, at people's reactions to that because that was not exactly what he was intending.
Right,
but I guess we could also, as we conclude this part, talk about because we talk about what the big imprint that this had on World War II cinema, the popular imagination of World War II. That really the only thing that I can think of that I think lived up to this, or I think even exceeded it in a big mainstream way, was Dunkirk. Is the only big war movie I can think of that is even better than this. I think as far as it's, if not what exactly it captures of a generation, but more so of the filmmaking on display by Nolan in that movie and how he manages to make these three timelines of a battle coincide together. Every time I watch that movie again, I'm just marveled by how, again, the whole stereotype of Nolan is that he's just he knows how to he's the best watchmaker in the world, and he just can engineer all everything to just hit at an exact right moment and the way it feels, and that also was kind of
with an accent thicker than sauerkraut sauce all while he does it.
You're daft. Tell him.
You're daft. Tell him.
Yeah. Off you go.
Up you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think also that had the unique...
He's about to do it again.
The unique distinction of, for American audiences, educating them on the importance of what Dunkirk was for the British circa 1940. That was something that in America we don't generally talk as much about, so that kind of gave a lot of awareness to that. Is there any other World War II stories or narratives? You mentioned Band of Brothers, which is a good thing to mention too. Over the last, say, 25 years that's been of note or kind of kept the World War II movie alive. I think Dunkirk by far to me is the biggest.
I mean, now we're getting to the point where we're so inside baseball on a lot of this stuff where it's not as many things. Well, I mean, I guess Inglourious Bastards is a big one, but that's doing it in this kind of
I think that, and I say that as a big fan of that movie. That is okay, we've officially done all the stuff that we can do, so let's do this.
Yeah.
That was obviously an alternate history take on it, and a more irreverent yet still emotionally potent take on the World War II movie.
Yeah, otherwise, I mean, there hasn't really been a whole lot. So, I mean, then there were, movies that would spend a lot of time being about Iraq and Afghanistan, and now you make a war movie about any time period. I feel like once we kind of turned the corner of the millennium, and now it's any kind of war you can make a movie about any time. I mean, you see that pretty regularly.
I think especially with the War on Terror, and we've talked about some of those movies with a little bit with. We talked about United 93, World Trade Center, but or when we were talking about 9/11 back when it was the 20th anniversary of that, but. Those are wars that just feel a lot less satisfying, I think, to make movies about, which is why they're harder for filmmakers to want to approach, but also as us as film goers to feel as invested in. I mean, World War II has been, for America, ever since it ended, this moment of, this was the pinnacle of us when we were the good guys in the world, and everything since then has been a step back.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty almost universally. So that I think that's why the World War II movie is always going to be those, kind of like the Western, where it's the Western as a genre is always usually only set, and I think they should be a little more adventurous to this as far as going a little bit further back, but usually set over about a 40-year period, really, from about 1860 to 1900, some time between that. Sometimes a little on either side, but usually it's this. And World War II obviously is even tighter time frame of about 5 years.
Yeah.
Well, you give or take some years on either side of it, but ultimately, like, you know, it feels like such a genre of itself
Right.
that you can go back and make. One thing I did want to say, actually, as an epilogue, I guess, is to talk about the 2001 Pearl Harbor just briefly.
Yeah.
I've wanted to do this as an episode before here or there. Maybe one
We can
day
do a
I'll
commentary
get my
on
wish
that.
because it does deserve commentary. I think I've never there's never been a time in the history of Hollywood where I've so seen the lines in the web that make something happen. Of Jerry Bruckheimer sing Titanic and sing Saving Private Ryan. Is like, wait a minute, what if we jam these two things together and made it, and it's going to be even better than either one of them.
And it's even worse.
Of course, it wasn't as good as either one by far.
Well, I say even worse, like those movies were bad, but yeah, it was terrible. Yeah, so terrible movie.
But that is now a classic for a lot of people, younger people. Actually, a lot of younger people are about my age or younger. Really, I would say. Like, actually, there's a lot that think that's a genuinely good movie, and there's of course
people
those
feel
who
that
know
way
the
about
difference.
the Patriot too, I guess. So
that's also a problem. You know?
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest holes in cinematic history is that there are no great Revolutionary War movies. There's Drums Along the Mohawk, which is fine, is good, but is actually not really about fundamentally.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the best
Revolution.
version of such a thing is going to be Turn, the TV show.
Well, I love John Adams. If you're going to count that,
there's better TV than there is.
TV, sure,
than there
but
is
I'm talking about
movies.
movies. Like,
I don't know why that's. Well, it's like even freaking Last of the Mohicans is like about the 7 Years' War. It's like if you could take that kind of sensibility and push it over a little ways. And I'm not saying that shouldn't be about that. I'm just saying
that's great. Yeah,
it's
but,
like we're almost there, but we're not.
There are a few. I love this. Like in The Last of the Mohicans, there are a few moments of like colonists that are like, we should do something different. Almost not quite the American nation in Patriot, but it's like.
Meanwhile, we're sitting there watching The Last of the Mohicans, and Dad's like, "Oh, I know that guy." It's like, wait, what? Because it's filmed in North Carolina. So he said, "Yeah, that's this guy's son. I know him." In the background of a scene, you're just like, okay. And it's like, oh, but this is New York State, though. And you're like, I don't think so. Yeah. Like, but whatever. That's hilarious.
Saving Private Ryan. Check it out if you haven't already.
I think you've
probably seen it. You probably have. Give it a watch if you haven't, because I think, like Levi
I
said,
haven't seen it in a while. So
it's that movie that, especially for a lot of guys or men, like you see a lot when you're like 13, 14 years old, and then you maybe put on a shelf and don't rewatch very often. Naturally,
and good news is this is one of those that is even better or the same.
You definitely even appreciate even more things about it as you get older. I think.
I mean, and so there are movies though that doesn't happen with. So this is not one of those.
Like Pearl Harbor is one of those movies. As a kid, I was like, oh, this is fun, this is cool.
With the moment when like, oh, you German, and the guy's like, I fought them in the trenches.
No, that's William Fichtner.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Pray to God you don't see the things that I saw.
Yeah. Well, also Nathan Fillion is in Saving Private Ryan. I just wanted to mention that. What do you think about that whole scene where it's like,
where they think like, he's the wrong Ryan? He's like, it breaks the news about his brother's dying or whatever, and he's like, your brother was killed in combat. He's like, his brother's like 8 years old or whatever,
or his brothers, right, and he's
Ted Danson's like goes and finds him.
Paul Giamatti's in it, and
this movie,
a friendly neighborhood morale officer.
This definitely has a lot of actors that went on to be bigger deals than they were. Like Hanks is really about the only one who was like pretty big star. I mean, even Bryan Cranston's got like a small role in this before, like Malcolm in the Middle and obviously Breaking Bad. So there's a lot of like Paul Giamatti, Bryan Cranston. Like what's funny is like most of the main people outside of obviously Matt Damon later in the movie are not like huge names now. Right. Sizemore's obviously he's no longer with us. But then like Ed Burns, he's been in some things, but he's not. He's directed some movies I know, which I've heard are good. I need to check them out. Within Giovanni Ribisi is now like one of the most in-demand cinematographers / Panavision experts. Barry Pepper.
Yeah, Barry Pepper. He's been in stuff.
Vin Diesel.
Shove that filthy pig Latin.
Yeah. Vin Diesel's always one of the biggest actors. I'm like, oh wait, yeah, he is in this. I totally forget.
And you're like, oh good, he's not in anymore.
Speaking of not being in anymore, Because you never know who's in the movie, who's out,
Yeah.
who's cut, who's there. I don't know who's there. I don't know who's not.
I don't know who's dead. I don't know who's caught. I don't know who's not. Yeah.
Here's the trailer for 1998's The Thin Red Line.
In this world, a man himself is nothing. And there ain't no world but this one.
I've seen another world. Sometimes I think it was just my imagination.
If I go first, I'll wait for you there. On the other side of the dark waters. Why should I be afraid to die? I belong to you. We're going straight up that hill there.
How many men do you think it's worth? How many lives?
There's nowhere we can hide. Except in each other.
I killed a man. Worst thing you can do. Nobody can touch me for it.
Make no difference who you are. No matter how much training you got, how tough a guy you might be, you're in the wrong spot at the wrong time, you're gonna get it.
I want you to attack right now, with every man at your disposal.
I've lived with these men, sir, for 2.5 years, and I will not order them all to their deaths.
Maybe all men got one big soul everybody's a part of. All faces of the same man. What's your name?
What difference you think you can make, one single man, in all this madness?
You're just too soft-hearted. You're not tough-fibered enough.
Have you ever had anyone die in your arms, sir?
Who lit this flame in us? Because I have you, nothing can touch me. No hurt, no grief, not even death.
Now that's a trailer that I've. Oh, we didn't. I don't know if we really talked about the Saving Private Ryan trailer. That was very.
Yeah, we did. We
oh,
said
a
it
little
was
bit.
weird,
Yeah,
but,
this is one I've
yeah.
I've definitely had seen before. But.
Yeah. Yeah. So The Thin Red Line is a 1998 American epic war film written and directed by Terrence Malick. It's the second film adaptation of the 1962 novel by James Jones. I'm going to stop here real quick to mention I've also heard James Jones was quoted as talking about war violence in movies being totally ridiculous. And
saying they were too romantic,
right? And that and like because I know that he also wrote From Here to Eternity.
Oh, right.
So
yeah,
but anyway, so the other version of The Thin Red Line was 1964. I haven't ever seen that. Telling a fictionalized version of the Battle of Mount Austin, which was part of the Guadalcanal campaign in the Pacific Theater of the Second World War. It portrays U.S. soldiers of C Company, 1st Battalion, 27th Infantry Regiment, 25th Infantry Division, played by Sean Penn, Jim Caviezel, Nick Nolte, and Elias Koteas, and Ben Chaplin. The novel's title alludes to a line from Rudyard Kipling's poem Tommy from Barrack Room Ballads, hilarious, in which he says British foot soldiers are called a thin red line of heroes, referring to the stand of the 93rd Regiment at the Battle of Balaclava, of the Crimean War. So we kind of talked about that earlier. Yeah. The film marked Malick's return to filmmaking after a 20-year absence. Obviously, it also has a lot of other big stars in the movie. Adrian Brody, George Clooney, John Cusack, Woody Harrelson, Jared Leto, John C. Reilly, and John Travolta. Reportedly, the first assembled cut took 7 months to edit and ran 5 hours. Also, it says, that there was a lot of footage cut from the movie, which cut performances by Bill Pullman, Lucas Haas, and Mickey Rourke. I think I'd also heard that Martin Sheen did some narration for the movie somewhere, and that they had cut that also. But also that one of, some of the Rourke stuff was included on the Criterion. But I wish there was a little bit more of that, but obviously I don't know. So basically, yeah, I mean, in this movie, was made for, $52 million. It made $98.1 million. And was shot over, a relatively long period. I mean, it was edited for longer, I guess, than the photography, but shot for 100 days in Australia, 24 days in the Solomon Islands, and then 3 days in the United States. And we'll talk more about this later, but I've said it a million times. I think it's totally insane they were able to shoot the stuff in the U.S. in only 3 days, but
yeah,
whatever. This movie is kind of really hard to wrap your arms around, or wrap your brain around, either way, as far as what, I wouldn't say the precise mission is, so much as just taking all of it in for what it is. When did you first see this movie?
I have.
I'm guessing
I don't have it
after
anymore.
That. I guess after Saving Private
Oh
Ryan.
yeah, I definitely would have seen Saving Private Ryan first. I need to. I don't have it anymore. I had like this old. There was like an imprint of Fox DVDs.
Yeah, there was.
It was like Fox War films or whatever, and it was like that version that I had on DVD. So I saw that probably a few times before the eventual Criterion came out that I saw it then.
Right.
I'm trying to think when it would have been. It would have been like circa 2009, 2010, somewhere probably around there.
Right. Yeah.
And I remember like as I was getting into movies more, that Terrence Malick's reputation was already this like mythic thing.
Yeah.
And this idea that, oh, this movie's got all these actors in there, and like you know, George Clooney's name was prominently on the DVD box art, and then like I was like, oh, George Clooney, and then the first time I would have seen George Clooney was Batman years ago. Obviously, right. Batman and Robin, but obviously by then I'd seen the Ocean's movies and other things. But it was like, oh wow, okay, so it's like all these actors, and I think as someone who would like mostly associate World War II movies with Saving Private Ryan and movies of a more traditional ilk, that when I saw this, I immediately loved it, but I was like, oh, this is very different, and this is very something, I wouldn't have known the word at the time, but like esoteric. It's something that's like, and I could definitely already understand that this is like not, it doesn't have the same point of view as something like Saving Private Ryan did. I could tell it was like, this is going for something. And I was like, kind of at first, kind of confused. Like, why is it showing like literally one of the first frames of the movie, like a friggin' crocodile or alligator, whatever it is, and of all these nature shots, and being like, huh, okay, I don't get that. And it was not actually. I think I would have seen The New World actually before this, because I remember my favorite teacher, one of my favorite teachers in high school, showed us that movie in English class. And I was one of the only people who liked it at all. Or most everybody shut off and went to sleep or whatever. And I was just like, oh my God, this is really cool. This is great. I
feel like,
and that's why that right there, and I know you know this, is why you sometimes charge ahead and show kids in school as a teacher movies that generally, the kids might not be into, but there's going to be that one or two kids that are like actually locked into and like, oh wow, that was something. And that was The New World for me. So seeing this, I think like, again, it didn't give me the same like, I don't know if patriotism's the feeling, but like the same feeling of like pride or of like in America, I guess you could say, that Saving Private Ryan did. And so that immediately was like something different. And then that got me into eventually watching, obviously at that point, this was all right before Trail of Life would have came out. So at that point there was only 4 Malick movies with Badlands, which at first was like my favorite between that and Days of Heaven. Yeah. But I've since grown to really like
Days of Heaven's better. Yeah.
Days of Heaven quite a bit more. And then that, and then this, and then like again, I think I'm rambling here. Part of like when you're like getting into movies, a young cinephile, a filmmaker and an auteur having a mythology surrounding them is something that immediately gets you interested in them. With this the whole Stanley Kubrick experience, obviously, even to an extent like Alfred Hitchcock, like all those people that we've talked about here and there about the people that when we were getting into movies we really fell for. And so I think like the mythology around this movie and the making of it, and that was all before I'd really watched Apocalypse Now and grown to learn and understand what that whole experience was, and how this is like kind of a mirror image of that, but also has some key differences too. I think it's like philosophically similar, but like its stylistic approach is very different. So I think this movie its reputation has grown and grown and grown and grown for me and for people in general. Because I think this came out like Christmas of '98.
Yeah.
And I think like already Saving Private Ryan was like the big, if there's going to be two of those movies that are going to exist, it has nothing to do with the quality of the movies themselves. But the Spielberg movie with Tom Hanks in it as the definitive lead is going to just get more play, box office wise, awards wise, all that.
Well, it's a movie that's more palatable.
Yeah, and so this though I think has aged better for cinephiles and people who are really into movies. In a way that I think is a slight disservice at times to Saving Private Ryan, although ultimately this is obviously a better film than Saving Private Ryan. I just said a lot of stuff there, so I'm curious to know I don't remember exactly when your experience of seeing this first would have been.
Malick's, it's weird because I wouldn't say that Malick is in like my top probably 5 even filmmakers or necessarily. But I feel like, as far as his style, if I were to become a filmmaker tomorrow, that would be
akin to that.
It would be very similar. Because I don't know that, and I'm not saying this is an insult, it's a very easy style to imitate. I mean, but it's very peculiar. I mean, I wouldn't do it as well, obviously. But it's the sort of thing that you don't ever think of until you see it, and then you're like, oh, well, I really am into that, like, whole, vision of the way to make a movie. I
think a lot of that has to ultimately come to the strength of the editing. Yeah. Of all what's going to work here, though, actually. Right. It's like, I think people think that looks effortless, and, it's like, you just shoot a bunch of stuff, and then, like, you just throw it together. And it's like, no, there's a lot of intentionality going behind all those
people totally cut out of a movie. Right. I mean, like, with just to talk about the famous story about Adrian Brody film, like, with being told he's the lead of the movie, and then he's like, says one line in the whole movie.
Yeah, we watched him.
That, like, I guarantee you, and Malick, I don't want to totally just like not critique Malick or anything, obviously about it, but like, I guarantee you that he might have thought he could have been the lead when he was making the movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just based on how much they shot. And then when they got into the editing doing that, they were like, no, that's not going to work. We need to have this, like, I don't know when that conversation occurred. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I mean, who knows? And there's a whole video.
To what extent is Brody slightly exaggerating?
Sure.
And maybe he's not. I don't know. I'm just saying.
And he might have been exaggerating a lot of that after The Pianist. I don't know. Sure. I don't know what the whole, like, timeline of all this nonsense is.
He's probably sick. He's probably been asked about it a bunch of times by this point. He's probably don't even want to talk about it anymore.
He just wants to talk about being on the Andrew Dice Clay TV show.
SNL time he hosted that.
Or that.
Yeah. Look it up.
Yeah, I'm not even going to imitate it. Other than Sean John! Anyway, that's just an example of like the way you can make the movie a million different ways, I guess, or like edit a bunch of different versions of the movie. And I think this, I don't know, watching this movie is like crack to me as far as its disposition, the way it moves. I feel like it works the best out of any of his movies, partly by nature of what the movie's about. I think it fits. I think that his use of nature photography probably works better, obviously, in something like The New World. Like, because that makes more sense. I think it's a little bit, like you were saying, kind of more disarming when you're first watching this movie. and you're like, you know, and you have like Saving Private Ryan more or less open immediately with the D-Day landing, and this opening with there's a crocodile, there's people on a river, there's these white guys hanging out on this island. Uh-oh, wait a minute, there might be a boat over there.
Yeah,
they might be caught.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, that kind of mode. Whereas, like, I think a perfect way to compare these two movies is like the intensity at the beginning of the movie is of a man kind of internal monologue, and I mean, obviously, there's a lot of monologues in this movie. I mean, that's kind of what the movie is ultimately.
That's another stereotypical, like Malick,
the narration. Yeah. But there's like an interior monologue of like of Ben Chaplin kind of talking to his wife while he's just getting down off the boat to go into the landing craft. But then when they actually do the landing craft and they land, there's nobody to meet them at the beach.
Yeah,
like it feels like it takes forever for a battle to happen in this movie, and there's actually a lot more battle scenes than even I remember. I feel like every time I watch it, I feel like there's more than I had remembered there being. So in its own way, it's actually his most accessible movie too, because it has a lot more action in the movie than you would think.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting though about it is he shoots it in a way that isn't particularly attractive, but isn't like ugly. He kind of, he does this kind of impossible thing where he kind of lets the camera sit above the action.
Yeah.
In a way that it's just literally depicting it in kind of this graceful, sort of like godlike way, you know.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I'm going to get right there, right up in this situation, you know. And there's a lot of insert shots and close-ups of things happening in the battle, but there's not a particular moment where it all just dead stops and there's a PTSD episode or there's like fragmentation, you know. It's a lot more of like coverage, just basic coverage, you know, or kind of you know, deity-esque views of what's happening, and then also, you know, transposing that against the way that nature is reacting to the battles themselves.
I think that's, for me, something that immediately stuck out when I first saw this was like, oh, this is about how nature's also being destroyed or like impacted, but because
there's that famous shot of the baby bird like being born with all the like mortar sounds happening during that.
And I think when you're a child, when you're playing war with your army men or your action figures or whatever, or even out in the woods, you're not like thinking about, oh, there's like this tree would blow up, or this this lake would have holes in it now, or like
and everything.
Yeah, you don't think about that stuff when you're young, and like this was a movie that for me just went out by virtue of how old I was when I saw it. Was like, oh wow, like war has these natural disruptions and like these. It's just not only is it an awful act because human beings are dying, but because God's creation is being destroyed. And you know, this is not a movie that engages in a more explicit Judeo-Christian religious tradition in the same way some of his other movies do, but there is a very deep spiritual element to this movie that's obviously
I
like
wouldn't
a
say
part
it's
of
even definitively Buddhist either. Or like Eastern. You know, I don't think it even. I think it somewhere sits in between.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it exactly wants to even equate the destruction of nature and the destruction of man like another movie might. I don't feel like it's saying, oh, this is just as important as that is, so much as using that as a comparison of look at all this beauty and then look at the beauty of the human being. Yeah. And, you know, I think it's kind of a complicated back and forth.
There's certainly different versions of philosophical conversations this movie explicitly has through dialogue. One of the most memorable to me is all the stuff between Caviezel, excuse me.
Did he get resurrected?
Caviezel and Sean Penn.
Which is basically always starts with Sean Penn like, you're a real piece of ass.
Yeah, he's just totally always dressing him down.
Effing suck. Yeah. Like, and then the end of the movie, he's like, he was my friend. It's like, what? Like,
I think, I remember the very first time I saw this, like, Sean Penn's name, I think might have been the first name that the DVD had up top, at least that version of it did. And then I saw he was early on. I was like, oh, so Sean Penn. I was barely knew who he was at that time. And I was like, oh, like, so he's going to be the lead in the movie. And it's like, well, not exactly. He's part of a larger ensemble. But I do think, like, that kind of callousness through which he views the Caviezel character. And then by the point, like you said at the end, where he's like, oh, he was my friend or whatever. It's like, that shows, like, that what the Caviezel character represents is almost a messianic Jesus-like quality, which of course he later would literally play Jesus in the Passion of the Christ. There is like, I don't know, I feel a little torn about like the Caviezel, not exactly performance, but that character's like place in the narrative, because there's part of it, it's like, yeah, you should just run away and be in the woods and be with like these native indigenous peoples here. Then there's another part of it that's kind of annoyed. That's like, you're not like, you're just putting all these other people in harm's way by being this person that they got to go and find and pull in to be involved with, you know, in the war. And so, like I said, I kind of feel a little torn with that character as far as like not the quality of the movie, but just how I feel about that character in relation to it. And this, Levi does a really cool thing of every time you rewatch this movie, you do a little different kind of snapshot at the different like every new review's about another character that's in the movie.
I do a similar thing with Heaven's Gate that is like about ideas in the movie rather than characters. But yeah, anyway.
And you know, your most recent one was about the Nick Nolte character, who's this pretty high up officer who's basically in charge of organizing and leading this assault on these islands. And, you know, the movie presents him as this huge, like, moral coward who's really just looking to try to, like, you know, there's no rhyme or reason behind why these islands need to be taken. And I feel like that is the most explicit political or like bigger picture critique that Malick is making in the movie, if you're going to find one, is like about the, you know, that like again separates it from like the, like, if you're looking at the parallel version of this in Saving Private Ryan, is that guy who's in Fargo's like, well, we need to send the boys over to these guys, we need to send a unit over to find this Private Ryan, you know. That's like that movie's version of this conflict. And this is obviously much more cynical. And rightfully so. And it's much more, you know, you feel like there's just a negative, obviously, like, not only people are going to die by this, but there's a cowardice going on with that character, that Elias Kodiak's character's, who's the one who's actually having to lead that like operation, is obviously they have a conflict. And
well, it's interesting that Nolte only really has like narration in the beginning and the end, and that his actions kind of speak for themselves. I mean, because you kind of get it at the beginning when he was with Travolta and John Revolting, and he's all like, "Oh, after Brown knows the generals do this and blah blah blah," and
at the very beginning, I remember first scene, he's like, oh, I kind of feel bad for this guy. But then, like, his actions obviously are...
But then by the end of the movie, he's, like, all by himself, and he's kind of reflecting on it. And, like, the last image of him in the movie, just him all by himself sitting on a crappy little chair, like, out in the camp, and just kind of like, whatever, nobody's talking to him, and, like, you know, then he's just, like, not in the movie anymore. And how the whole time he's just so like worried about, this is my war and I have to make it count and do this and do that, and ultimately what's weird about it is he's kind of proven right more often than he's not. It's just like the treatment of him obviously is, you know, or the way he treats people is different. So yeah. But this movie has a lot of different actors. This might be a good moment to talk about, some of the other people that were like wanting to be in this movie. Well, actually, so before I do that, it might be interesting to talk real quickly about like this movie's history. So Malick had made Days of Heaven, really kind of finished it, I guess, in like 76.
Yeah.
And it didn't come out in like 78.
Yeah.
And he was so his first thing he wanted to do was direct an adaptation of David Rabe's In the Boom Boom Room, which is one of my favorite titles for anything. Then he was going to make The Elephant Man, which, of course, was, made by David Lynch. Then he was going to adapt The White Hotel, a novel by D.M. Thomas. Then he was going to make a version of Moliere's
Tartuffe. I remember reading that in school years
ago. And then he kind of thought about doing The Thin Red Line. So basically, he finally started really doing... And then in the middle of all that, then he wanted to kind of make what later became the second part of Steven Soderbergh's Che.
Right.
That's what's funny to me. I'm like, of course, that's what Malick would make a movie about, is the boring part. Anyway, so they paid him to finally, do this movie. It said that the producers spent a lot of time talking to Malick about his vision of the film. Geisler, who was one of the producers, kind of said, Malick's Guadalcanal will be a paradise lost and Eden raped by the green poison, as Terry used to call it, of war. Much of the violence was to be portrayed indirectly. A soldier is shot, but rather than showing a Spielbergian bloody face, it's interesting they say that, we see a tree explode, the shredded vegetation, and a gorgeous bird with a broken wing flying out of a tree. So while he was writing this, said that EA was given basically all kinds of research material, including a book titled Reptiles and Amphibians of Australia, an audio tape of Kodo's Heartbeat Drummers of Japan, information on the Navajo Code Talkers, recruited by the United States Marine Corps. And so, yeah, he just spent a lot of time doing that. Also worked on a stage production of Shansho the Bailiff that never happened in all that time. Okay. So anyway, basically, then they started, getting ready to shoot the movie. It says by January they were starting to look for places where they could go shoot it. Said originally they were going to do Panama and Costa Rica. Anyway, then they started going to Queensland, and they shot a lot of it in Australia, obviously, and Solomon Islands. So this is one of those things where it's kind of like what was said about Apocalypse Now, where it's like the production of the movie kind of became a war or whatever, in quotes, I
think the actual production of Apocalypse Now was obviously more chaotic than this was, but
this one was I think it was weird. It was a lot more coordinated about we've got the money to do this, we're going to make it happen. It's just going to take a while. Yeah. And everybody just kind of came out. Because what's interesting is, how many people wanted to work with him, obviously. You had all these people who were in the movie. But then you also had all these other people who basically, wanted to work on it and didn't get to, but people that were so in love with Badlands and Days of Heaven. Sean Penn said, quote, "Give me $1 and tell me where to show up." Basically saying, I'll go do anything. So they sent scripts to De Niro, Duvall, and Tom Cruise. Robert Duvall.
Have you ever seen the clip of George Lucas when he won his Irvin G. Thalberg Award in the mid-90s, late 90s, before Episode 1 would have come out? I remember he said something along the lines of in his speech that I've probably had the most awards or acclaim for someone who's made the least amount of work since Terry Malick. He specifically named, because that was before The Thin Red Line would have even come out too, right. I know.
But yeah, just it says... Then it says, once word went out that Malick was making another movie after many years, numerous actors approached him. Brad Pitt, Pacino, Gary Oldman, George Clooney offered to work for a fraction. Some even offered to work for free. Bruce Willis even went as far as offering to pay for first-class tickets for the casting crew to get a few lines for the movie.
Wow.
And it said, reading Martin Sheen delivered the screen directions. Kevin Costner, Will Patton, Peter Berg, Lucas Haas, Dermot Mulroney playing the main roles. None of them were in the movie. Johnny Depp came out. Edward Norton wanted to. Matthew McConaughey wanted to. Apparently, William Baldwin, Edward Burns, Josh Hartnett, Crispin Glover, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Stephen Dorff, Leonardo DiCaprio. The last three of those flew from the Mexico set of Romeo and Juliet to meet with Malick.
Wow.
Nicolas Cage came out and wanted to do it. Also, other people stuff was shot that they weren't in the movie were Jason Patric, Martin Sheen, and Viggo Mortensen.
Also says here on the Wikipedia page, Tom Sizemore, however, was offered a more substantial role in Saving Private Ryan, and he could not contact Malick for several days, decided to do Steve because he's walking off in the woods.
Yeah, who knows? Well, they were probably already they might have even been making the movie by then. I don't know, but Yeah, because I know this movie was shot for a little while, like I said before. It was edited. So yeah, they were probably already making it. Yeah, so basically this is just to say that, like, do you find it, even despite the movie that was made, which is one of the greatest movies ever made, in my opinion, of The Thin Red Line, do you not find it a little bit odd that, like, that many people, just based on 2 movies, were like, oh yeah, we gotta do it?
Yeah,
Like,
I think, not to, like, put words or thoughts into any of those actors' mouths or heads, but I wonder if there was this idea of, like, the lost magic of New Hollywood had this opportunity to be reawakened by this guy who had not made a movie in, at that point, would be 20 years. And, you know, like, by the mid to late 90s, we all know what a Spielberg movie is. By the mid to late 90s, we all knew what a Martin Scorsese movie was, or, you know, like, but what a Terrence Malick movie is, I don't really know. I'm not really sure. We'll see. And just the idea of working with him and having that experience.
Well, I wonder if also Martin Sheen might have, like, made a lot of phone calls and kind of set up a lot of this stuff, and it's kind of been minorly mythologized, even slightly. I don't know. Like,
well, I think, yeah, that's probably true. I think also just the hype of, oh, he's not made a movie in this long, so I want to be a part of that. And, you know, and then, like, you know, what you just read off, that's just some of the biggest stars, literally all the biggest stars in Hollywood at that time. Have some relation to that.
Well, then it says, too, that it says Malick's reputation and working methods commanded great respect among the actors, with both Woody Harrelson and John Savage staying on for an extra month after they finished all their scenes just to watch him at work. So basically that, and I mean, I think he is an actor's director. I know that Christopher Plummer wants to destroy that reputation. You know, well, now he's dead, so it doesn't matter. But, like, you know, by saying all that stuff about the New World, about how, he cut stuff out of the movie that I did, you know.
Right.
But that, you know, are you going to reference that one guy that was in,
well, you've heard that story, I think,
Reno 911, about how weird
Thomas Lennon, he told a story about when he was making Knight of Cups, that he was like, you know, said he would just like, he was set up this, like, Malick set up this whole, like, party scene, and everybody was just supposed to kind of, like, you know, it was mostly about him following the Christian Bale character, but he was, like, going to just take in other things people were doing or saying or whatever, and him talking about how he happened to be, like, he was dealing with some situation with his wife at that moment, and he was, like, basically arguing with her on the phone, and that he just, like, walks up and he just starts filming. And he said he was, like, genuinely angry about the situation and angry that that was being filmed or whatever. And that I think that ended up in the movie, I think is what he said.
Yeah.
And he was kind of laughing about it after the fact, though. And he's like, and he was just, I think in that moment he was frustrated. But after the fact, he was kind of like, you know, that he's genuinely this artist who's, like, working on a frequency that, like, I as a performer was just not jiving at that moment, but I'm glad ultimately kind of happened. And, you know,
well, that's the thing. I think a lot of these the actors that have complained don't understand exactly that it's not personal. I don't know the man, but, like, I would assume is not personal. It's just he just wants to get as much coverage as possible and use it. I mean, to speak for me briefly, I've been making it's the thing that'll never end, this soccer documentary about that. I got a lot of pictures from this last soccer season that I had with my middle school team, and then I did interviews with all of them. And it's one of those things where I now realize, and it's kind of weird, I kind of feel bad about it and kind of don't, that, like, there's certain things I want the narrative thrust of the documentary to go a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And so then I've went and asked a couple times, hey, I need you to do this, I need you to say this.
Yeah.
And I'm still feeling like, I need to do that to make the thing function or work.
Right.
You know. And then I think about Malick here, and it's like, and obviously the narration does a lot of that.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the, like, okay, you come in and you say this. But as far as like the stuff in the moment goes, that's what I think so impressive about this, just from even a very amateur point of view of somebody who's like can engineer everything to just get as much coverage as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another thing of why I'm very inspired by him, and that would influence a style that I would have if I did so, is that to try to just get as much stuff.
Yeah.
Because then you can make anything out of that. You know?
I think, and that all this about...
And that might include awkward things like what Thomas Lennon's talking about.
Yeah, and I think he's all about, obviously, what he's going for with his cinematic philosophy and style is like, obviously not working in the traditional Hollywood studio system is like to blur and divide and get rid of the lines between cast and crew, and where it's like the actors are performing in non-showy or actorly ways, that they're just being, they're just people. I do think it's a little interesting that the mythology of Malick, while still very rich, has taken a little bit of a I don't know what the word to say is, like a little bit of a maybe complication as he's just made more movies over the last like 30 years. Because, the movie that would have been after this was The New World, which is my personal favorite of his movies. That also kept it going, I felt like. But I don't know, and I know for a lot of people really love The Tree of Life. That's one that we're not as taken with. I do want to rewatch it. But then since then, let's see.
Did that
Tree of Life, To the Wonder, which I liked. I've actually seen that. It's fine. Knight of Cups I've not seen. Voyage of Time I've not seen. Song to Song I've not seen. And then A Hidden Life I've not seen, but that's the one that everybody says is probably his best movie since either The New World or The Tree of Life. And so I think it's not that the magic was lost as he's kept making movies. It's just like, what a Terrence Malick movie is, going back to what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
It's kind of fallen a little more into formation.
Right.
As far as like, okay, we know what to expect and we know what it looks like. And I think like his style with this or with any of his movies is something that's easy to say, I get it. It's like, but when other people try it and fall on their face and fail, or just don't live up to obviously that you don't see many, even movies from great auteurs that feel as though they're exuding a philosophy, and that there are real works of like fine moving art. And his movies, even the ones I'm not super taken with, feel like that. They feel like they're all like, it's all very been slaved over, and it's all very particularly orchestrated. And I think that's especially hard to do, and what makes the accomplishment of this movie even richer is that that was done with a war movie, which is something that obviously requires a lot of planning, but like cinematically you want to feel as though it has a sense of spontaneity to make it feel like it's alive.
Yeah.
And this is something that somehow manages to still do that while also feeling like there's like you're kind of floating above the narrative a little bit while watching all this happen. And and kind of going back to the comparison between these two movies, like I said, I think I do think this is better than Saving Private Ryan, although I think that's also a very easy thing to say.
Yeah.
And but while also thinking that, so you might be like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You're arguing with yourself about that? Not exactly, but I think going back to the comparison with Apocalypse Now that we mentioned earlier, which is a movie that's obviously very important to both of us and we've seen tons of times. Did we do on this podcast a version of that? Apocalypse Now?
No.
Oh no, we've talked about it maybe here and there, but I think one could argue it's like the lack of a point, or not the lack of a point of view, the like a little bit of like graying of a point of view is its own, sometimes maybe boring point of view. But I think what makes this movie ultimate grand success artistically is that it is like setting war like right next door to nature, and there's a weird optimism of this movie in a way that's like the first image of the movie is like of this this natural creature, and it's what looks like a primordial. It looks like it could have been thousands of years ago or something.
Right.
It was like this image, and then like despite everything we've seen by the end of the movie, this sense of like this island's still going to be here. Well, after these people leave,
the difference,
and go,
I guess, about the final image of the movie is that rock with the little like leaf on top of it, like somebody had placed it that way, which can mean a lot of things. One, I think that's kind of
that there was a mark that was left of sorts.
That, but also even it's like a mark of the indigenous people for Jim Caviezel's character, like a grave marker. And also even just a human contact with that nature, like I said, and so it means a lot of different things. But and I think like the movie can appear smug at times.
I guess that's what I mean. Like
by just
it
being
can feel that way.
That it's like removed and it's like very like kind of vague.
Versus the guy that's on the beach in Saving Private Ryan that looks like his guts are coming out and he's screaming for his mother. You know what I mean? That's like there's. But this movie also has some intense death or dying scenes. I mean, the stuff we didn't really mention Woody Harrelson at all, I don't think, but like where he accidentally blows himself partly apart with a grenade that he has. So this movie definitely has that. I do think like maybe talk briefly about the depictions of the Japanese in this versus the Germans in Saving Private Ryan. That
one of them even gets narration at one point. So
that's true.
From Beyond the Grave, I guess.
Yeah, I do think it's like neither film is better or worse than the other one in that regard. They're just different things. We didn't really mention, we're talking about like, if we're talking about war movies that came after either one of these, the Clint Eastwood duology of Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima is actually I haven't seen
Letters from Iwo Jima.
Letters from Iwo Jima. I haven't seen Flags of Our Fathers in years. Those are also probably the most like interesting, philosophically rich of the war movies that have been made since then. Especially, I think some people would be surprised that somebody who's a fairly conservative filmmaker like Clint Eastwood would make a movie like Letters from Iwo Jima that it has as much empathy for the Japanese as it does. You know, I think that surprises some people. But was there any like real big impressions you can think of as far as the differences between the depictions of Germans versus Japanese in these movies?
Well, the Japanese are barely in the movie. I think it's interesting that there's similar shots.
Also, the geography, I guess, of the battlefield itself is like this, and that goes with the whole island hopping campaign strategy. It's like we don't know where they are. It's like it's hard to see or find them, and so that feels like they're just not as present.
But there's even similar shots. Like there's the the opening of Saving Private Ryan of the shots of the machine guns firing, and you're not seeing the Germans there. You're just seeing the machine gun. There's actually really the first time that. Well, no, I shouldn't say that because there's like some far away Japanese soldiers, but like there's that one part where it's just like a machine gun nest and you see it kind of moving, but you don't see the person.
Yeah.
And that eventually then you see a lot more Japanese when they take them prisoner. The Japanese, I don't think this movie is at all racist or depicting them in a prejudiced way. But for a little bit, they're depicted as just kind of like losing their minds, or they're like manic, or they're screaming.
I guess that stands out a little more compared to say the like pretty much exclusively white soldiers. Obviously, we see the Americans, but we also see the other shades of them.
Yeah.
While so they feel denser versus. We only are going to see the Japanese.
Well, and then that way we're seeing it from the point of view of the soldiers too.
Right.
There's that whole part where the one soldier is talking to the Japanese soldier and telling him you're about to die and that bird's going to eat you, and then the Japanese soldier says something to him in Japanese that we don't know what he says because there's no subtitle.
Yeah.
that he later remembers that and has PTSD over it. But I don't know. I think there could be more of that in the movie. I don't think it's good or bad either way. I mean, I think it's fine. I think it's ample. Yeah. I don't feel that more would have been necessary either. Because the whole point is made by the guy feeling bad later about killing that guy, or at least presiding over his death. So I feel like that kind of.
And there's also then even the third we've mentioned already, the indigenous people.
Right.
There's the whole other perspective of kind of like, we don't really get any like a talking head or a voice from really any of them in a fundamental way.
Yeah.
About their perspective on them, other than why is all this coming to visit us? Because we were just totally cut off from either one of you as a people, and here we are.
Yeah, and I think that I think his depiction of the indigenous is very interesting because some people who would be less charitable towards it would read it as like he's viewing them as simplistic or like children.
Yeah.
But I think it's a lot more complicated, either in this or in the New World. But I think it's a lot more complicated in terms of these people recognizing a simplicity of life that's like a purity to it,
which Jim Caviezel is keying into,
and also even I think that's the case with John Smith in the New World, which that's even more remarked upon by the fact that he has to leave that and can't really get it back. Juxtaposed with Christian Bale's is a lot more like colonizing, a colonial attitude towards it, of saying I have this exotic thing I'm going to take back with me to my homeland, and what that means to him is a different thing, and more in what I think the critics would think that all these versions of Malick's versions of indigenous people is. But so yeah,
one would probably this is another conversation about the New World, but generally the New World was well received by, I think, indigenous peoples, but I think some would say that's still a too romantic version of what the interaction between the English colonists and the Iroquois people were, or Powhatan, excuse me. Terry Malick, he's Martin. Yeah, if you've never seen Martin Sheen talk about that, because they had it's interesting that you mentioned he had some role in a very abstract way to play in this.
He's waving some wand over a lot of that kind of aspect of the pre-production.
He was a big friend of his, and he tells a story that it was like some point in the early 80s. I think it was in Paris or some international European city. He was literally just walking around in a total spiritual, basically hell, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, runs into Terrence Malick, who he had not seen for close to 10 years by that point, I think, since they'd done Badlands together, and totally rekindled their friendship and relationship, and he actually apparently led him back to Catholicism, which he was at one point. Sheen, that is. And so, he's clearly a deeply spiritual person, and I think that's it's very rare that you feel like what you hear about him, like his personality in that way, is just so clearly transcribed onto the cinema, the movies that he made. Again, one of the I've not been rushing out to see a lot of these newer ones, and yet I'm very much looking forward to actually eventually sitting down and watching them. It's kind of a similar quality to me of some of your favorite writers. Oh, I've still got so and so to read, or I've still got. I mentioned them earlier. I still got James Ellroy to read. Now I'm there's no more Thomas Pynchon to read. There's no new to reread. Obviously, there's no more Don DeLillo to read. There's a certain sadness that happens with that. So, people talk about with bottles of wine, I feel like Malick, to an extent, his movies are going to be that for me, probably. And he's made a lot or more. I should say, since say this period, and yet there's still very, very attainable number to watch pretty quickly.
Right, and I know The Way of the Wind is supposed to come out either this year or next. I think originally it was rumored that it might show at Cannes right now, but it wasn't put on the list. about Jesus.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see him straight up make a movie about Jesus, because he's kind of been making movies about Jesus forever. So
that we got a lot of that was brought up a lot with I Know a Hidden Life.
Yeah.
Which is probably the movie I'm most looking forward to watching because it's been the most acclaimed. But it came out back in 2019. So, but Terrence Malick and Steven Spielberg, they're two interesting people to put side by side because they're both loosely of the new Hollywood era, and obviously have went about having very, very different careers. But just goes to show you can go about it different ways and make great things in your own right in different ways, So, any other thoughts about either one of those?
No, I just think as far as you want to talk about war movies made around the same time, it doesn't get a whole lot better, I don't think, as far as the companion pieces and comparisons. Because they're very different.
I can imagine a hypothetical World War II veteran actually finding this maybe a little easier to watch than Saving Private Ryan. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also, even veterans of other wars.
It depends on the theater, too, I guess, because it's the two theaters, so...
And I think too, like this movie is maybe like not like artistically exactly when I say this, but like maybe immediately less gratifying, but in the long run is more gratifying, and that's oftentimes, what can happen with like two movies that just happen to come out around the same time and feel like they're covering similar phenomenon or events or whatnot. I was looking earlier. I want to read you, Levi, the top 10 of 1998 box office wise. We might have covered this at one point when we were talking about 1998 movies when we were going through the 90s. Yeah. Armageddon, number 1.
Okay.
Saving Private Ryan, number 2. Godzilla, number 3. There's Something About Mary, number 4. A Bug's Life, number 5. Deep Impact, number 6. Number 7's Mulan. Number 8, Dr. Dolittle. Number 9, Shakespeare in Love. And number 10, Lethal Weapon 4.
So Thin Red Line didn't make it.
Not quite on that. A little something for everybody, though, in that list as far as what 1998 was. But the most important thing was Levi Huffman entered the world in 1998. So that's something to celebrate. So
I came in between these movies, so more or less.
But that's not all, Levi. We've got more movies coming up. Jeff, what have we got next time?
Stay tuned for scenes from our next episode.
島田先生にひとたきご協同何とぞ言って道場の書式に従い師範代殿との手合わせは終わったされば島田先生にお立ち会いを願おう
立ち会ってみるまでもないそれにそれがし抜き道はあまり得意とせんのでな
Silver rings. Silver rings, your butt. Them's washers. Damn! Washers. Washers. We shot our way out of that town for $1 worth of steel hose. They set it up. They? Who in the hell is they? They? Why, they is just plain and fancy they. That's who they is. Caught you, didn't they, eh? Tied a tin can to your tail, led you in and waltzed you out again. Oh, my, what a bunch. Big tough one, eh? Here you are with a handful of holes, a thumb up your ass, and a big grin to pass the time of day with. They! Who the hell is they?
Bounty hunters, railroad men, Deke Thornton. All right, it's finally time, Kyle.
There's part of me that's like, I cannot believe we've not done the Wild Bunch yet on this podcast.
Well,
There's a commentary or
the Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, and we talked a lot. I felt like we wanted to talk more about that when we talked about that movie, probably. So.
But also, pardon you, it's okay if you don't speak Japanese because I don't either. Sword of Doom.
Yeah.
From 1966 and The Wild Bunch 1969. This was one Levi had been talking about for a while, and I've not seen Sword of Doom as of this moment, but I'll be watching soon. Levi, what can you tell us about Sword of Doom?
Well, it's a Kihachi Akamoto film. He made quite a few little
movies. He's made a few.
Yeah. Regrets. He's had a few. This is his kind of most famous, and then he made a movie called Kill! Also,
what's that about?
Yeah, I thought you were asking genuinely for a second. Samurai Assassin is another pretty big one.
So he made a lot of samurai
and then
movies.
He made Zatachi meets Yojimbo. So you know that Zatachi, the blind swordsman.
Oh, they did like a crossover?
Yeah, I was aware of it, but
so it's like Frankenstein meets the Wolfman or something. Wow.
Japan's Longest Day. I've kind of heard of that a little bit. That was about, basically deciding, I think, to the Japan to surrender.
That actually would be a great idea for a movie. I've never thought about that before.
And he made a bunch of different action movies and different things. This movie was something that I kind of had sitting around in my head for a long time as far as watching this movie at all. That is essentially, I think, the Wild Bunch of the samurai movies. In the sense that it's about the idea of kind of the death of honor of the samurai, because it's about a samurai Ronin who's just kills people. I mean, he's basically just a serial killer, more or less, but he walks around, just does whatever he wants, and I won't go into all the details about various things that happen in the movie, but then, and it's kind of about some of the, samurai clan politics a little bit in there, too, but mainly about how, Toshiro Mifune in the movie ends up basically trying to find him and kill him. But that ultimately, I won't go into what the end of the movie is, but ends a totally different way. So, than anything than you would think exactly. But it's not exactly a explicitly supernatural samurai movie like Throne of Blood would be, or for example, but it has a lot of kind of supernatural elements. Very powerful movie in a lot of ways, as far as if you're comparing it to other ones. I mean, I think that if you're talking about other movies that he was in, Tatsuya Nakadai, who actually died earlier this year, late last year in November 2025, that he's been in even better movies. Harakiri, I think, is in one of the best movies ever made, definitely the best samurai movie ever made, that Masaki Kobayashi made. But that guy made all those Human Condition movies, and Kwai-Dan and other stuff. But anyway, and then he was also the main guy in The Face of Another, which we watched here a while back, and then was in Ran and High and Low. So he was in Yojimbo and Sanjuro. So he was in a lot of stuff. But anyway, I think that he's really great in this. Very kind of complicated performance, and so it's the kind of samurai movie that is a lot meaner than the others, as far as that I've seen. As far as a lot of the, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but a lot of the Kira Kurosawa ones are a lot more about honor, or about kind of ideas about justice, and this one's very much the opposite of, as far as.
I think it's almost like Kurosawa is the John Ford esque figure of the samurai movie versus more of a Sam Peckinpah figure.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit more of a Sam Peckinpah type that this movie is. So,
is there anyone who's that can really be a Sam Peckinpah type? That's a question that we'll ask ourselves as we talk about The Wild Bunch. One of like the first westerns I ever saw that I immediately said this is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
And I say one of like say top 25 maybe or something
sure.
like that. I've not made a top 25 in a while, but Wild Bunch is very likely would end up on that list. Good, Bad, the Ugly, very different. But also
I struggled for a long time. There was that period of time where I didn't watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly for a while. And so I decided The Wild Bunch was my favorite Western, and then I watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly again a couple years ago and was like, oh, never mind. Like, and just went back to that. But The Wild Bunch is, also is like my second favorite.
It's so fascinating to me that those are two Westerns that are like of the same time period. And like, in theory, superficially, they're like new kinds of Westerns, or new, but like they themselves are very different. As far as what they mean.
And they're both. I mean, I think the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly has more inherent comedy in it.
Yeah.
But The Wild Bunch is also funny, but they're funny in totally different ways. Like not
like
even,
with there's a gallows humor to both, I guess.
Yeah.
Like with The Wild Bunch, there's this also though this deeply romantic notion of, and that I think so many Westerns have, we talked about this a little bit with Saving Private Ryan, I guess, of like when something does something so well, so many other things rip it off to the point where sometimes you hold it against the original movie, but the last Western, the end of the era, the riding off into the sunset, which is literally basically what happens, a version of it in The Wild Bunch, and this like, also this feeling of, well, I'm going to die, but I'm going to die on my terms, which is obviously what that's all about. And, I was saying this as we were rewatching, I don't say this lightly, when we were rewatching the scene that you just heard, there's part of it, oh my God, those are all my friends. Those are like all these people I feel like I know, it's like, that has one of the strongest casts I can think of.
I think what can really prove what a great cast it is that you could look at just Warren Oates and Ben Johnson and say those are not even close to some of the best performances that I think they've given, and they're still in this movie. You know what I mean? Right. And they're still that good in it, I think.
And certainly William Holden. This was definitely the first time I ever saw William Holden, and I've grown to see more things before and after.
Nurse Borgnine and Robert Ryan and Edmund O'Brien and even Jaime Hernandez is good.
I won't say it's even a problem with The Wild Bunch, but there's always a part of me at the end I'm like, I wish I got more Robert Ryan in this movie. That character is actually, I feel like Peckinpah's like, he's more of a turncoat kind of anyway, so let's be with these guys, because ultimately I'll care more about them. But shall we gather at the river? We'll go through that and talk about that. The beautiful. Hey, before you get.
And as far as all this goes, there was plenty of violence in westerns for forever.
Yeah.
But.
That was very
this
much.
This was on another level of.
Especially like a studio western that was made.
I don't remember if it got. I don't think it got the X at the time. It got
I think it was one of those that flirted with it, though.
But I know that, I'm not even kidding, when it was re-released in the 90s, it got an NC-17 at one point.
Really?
Yeah, for the... and apparently, I know this is a famous statistic, that there were apparently more bullets fired in the final sequence than there were in the entire Mexican Revolution. So, of at least one of those at that time, because there were multiple revolutions. But
I think the one that was maybe going on at that moment.
Which is... hilarious.
And
the fact that they had to count that at some point is also funny. But it's one of those movies that, like, I won't lie, there's parts of the movie that can drag a little bit.
I haven't seen it in a while,
of the Wild Bunch. That are kind of. I love the whole movie more or less, but like, the movie could be short. Well, I think the version that is now out is like a director's cut version that is the only version that's released on home video. I could see this movie easily being like 20 minutes shorter. But it's the Wild Bunch, so who cares?
Yeah.
So, but.
Yep. The Wild Bunch. And so, was your pairing with these movies like the obvious interplay between samurai movie and westerns?
Well, I think
they're of this era.
Yeah, I think they're both around the same time, and they're both movies that are revisionist versions of their own
genres.
Ilk. And they're both about kind of a meanness inherent to the genre that is. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I think that the main character in sort of Doom is a lot more inherently, sadistic, and you find me sadistic.
Was gonna say it, but you did.
And psychopathic, sociopathic at least, but then like all the main guys in the Wild Bunch, and they have more of like we don't want to like hurt regular people, but we do it if we have to. Like, no, I mean that guy goes out of his way and sort of Doom to just like murder people for no reason. I mean the movie basically opens with, it's not really a spoiler, opens with like an old man who's like doing this prayer walk with his daughter, and he just shows up and just for some reasons I'm just going to kill this guy because I want to, and it's very just like, wait, what, why, like you know, and so like that's kind of the start of the movie, and so you automatically are like, okay, whereas these guys, it's like you kind of feel bad that they die eventually, but. And you kind of have your laughs along the way, but then objectively you're like, well, these people are terrible. Like, you know,
right.
There's a lot less of a remove. You know, but they're still similar in that idea of like, what is this actually really? What's this?
But they also have a
about?
Sense of honor. I think that's the thing that makes them as likable as they are, and you know, for being awful people. Like, what's his name? The Mexican guy that's in the Paco or. What is his name? I can't remember now.
Angel.
Maybe is it Angel? No, I'm talking the Wild Angels. The Wild Thornberries. The Wild.
You can't remember the name.
I was like, the Wild. What's his name?
Angel.
Yeah, Angel.
I'll ride with you, Jefe.
You know, you got a great part when there's a nickname like
Dutch.
Like Ernest Borgnine is Dutch Engstrom.
I don't remember them saying the Engstrom name much. Pike. There he is. There's Pike.
Bo Hopkins is Clarence Crazy Lee.
Oh, we didn't even talk about L.Q. Jones and Strother Martin in the movie, like that whole interplay, but we'll get to that later. But I was like, there he is.
Yeah,
so
L.C. Jones is T.C. Yeah, because Strother Martin's like, T.C. help me get his boots or whatever. Yeah,
he talked like that to me. L.Q. Jones was one of those guys. He was like alive until like he died like a couple years ago.
He was 94.
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah, he was a month short of being 95.
That's what I was gonna say, is that he was like of that era, was like the oldest guy out of everybody. Like he lived up forever. Like his version of Olivia de Havilland, that era of people.
Yeah, he will always be Three Fingered Jack.
Yeah,
from
and he was in
Road.
Casino. He was in a bunch of stuff, but so D, and D, the horse that
Battle of Cable Hogue. I've still never seen that.
You steal people's lives.
Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that. You know, I was looking recently, and then we'll finish this up here. That Pat Garrett Millie the Kid, and somebody, I don't remember who it was. Somebody was talking about, I never really liked this movie. I think it was Jim Beaver, who was that guy that was in he was in Deadwood, and then he was like the gun dealer on Breaking Bad. He's randomly on a Letterboxd like all the time, and he was like, I've never liked this movie. Talking about Pat Garrett and Billy Kid. I'm like, what are you talking about? But anyway.
I'll have you have the same shock I do, like where it says The Patriot. I was like, who was he in The Patriot? And then it's a totally unrelated Steven Seagal movie.
He's just a cook.
Wait, okay. Steven Seagal's first direct-to-video film. Oh, great. It features him as a local doctor and
as the local witch doctor
and former immunologist who races against time to find a cure for an active viral outbreak, the origins of which trace back to a militia leader who injected himself with a deadly virus.
I literally blanked out. I don't even know what you just said. Like, I'm dead serious.
LQ's in that, though.
Wow.
Okay, cool.
What's that scene, where he's like takes the handbill away from him, and he's like, "Para usted, por favor, amigos," or whatever, in his like voice. Anyway, LQ Jones, R.I.P.
Yeah, Will he go in the? Will he go in the?
I don't know. We'll have to wait. Bo Hopkins don't make it in before him. I don't know. To be honest, like TBH,
TBH, and over the bridge.
I mean, Bo Hopkins is also, Ken Klontz in American Graffiti. If you don't know Ken Klontz, then you don't know.
There's always that actor that I get him confused
White
with.
Lightning.
In that, he's. Okay, no, yeah. There's somebody else I was thinking of. I don't know, but yeah, also
The Man Who Loved Cat Dancing is always one of the dumbest names for anything I've ever seen. Was that Burt Reynolds movie?
Let's see. Burt Reynolds, yeah.
So you work with Burt Reynolds a lot,
George Hamilton.
How you dress competing.
I'm convinced there's like that, and I say this with love to a lot of these movies. There's a lot of those just like 70s movies that I'm just convinced they're like on the last week of shooting of one
They come
movie,
up with a name,
and they're like, "Hey, like I'm doing this thing like 3 weeks from now. You want to come be in that?" And I'm like, "Okay, sure. Is there gonna be beer there?" And they're like, "Yeah." It's like, "Okay, cocaine
I'll buy you a new dress come payday." Literally.